Meeting will come to order. The minutes have been distributed. Is there a motion for the minutes?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
You can take that by consent. Consent. We've distributed an agenda. Are there amendments to the proposed agenda? Representative Porter?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. What I'm asking is that the review item in regards to HIP 3.0 be removed from the agenda. The reason being is that I cannot in good conscience support dismantling the HIP 2.0 program, which would take it back to as Indiana begin to participate in the Medicaid expansion, the Affordable Care Act. I believe that at this point, I think the timing of it is not good. There are other states that has seen this movement, like Arkansas, Georgia, and Nebraska, are now beginning to rethink what they've been doing. Hoosiers deserve, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, medical care and needlessly impacted health insurance. So we're asking that we ask you that we remove this part from our agenda. I think, again, the timing is not right now. And I also feel like moving backwards is that from the Affordable Care Act, we're moving backwards. You may call it 3.0, but I will, being around for a while, I will call it HIP 1.5. With that, Mr. Chairman, ladies and gentlemen of the committee, that's my motion.
So there's a motion to remove the HIP 3.0 from the agenda.
I'll second the motion.
All right, so we'll go ahead and take a vote. I guess we'll have to call the roll on that one. So we'll call the roll on that. So we'll start with, do you want to do it?
No.
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 Aye.
Yes.
Okay, so HIP 3.0 will stay on the agenda. So the agenda is, Mr. Chairman. Yeah. Yeah, Representative Delaney.
I hope I'm doing this the right way. There's an item listed as a review item under the August 20 letter. It's not, excuse me, as a report item, not as a review item, that I think is misnomered. It should be a review item because of the content. It's item 5, which is the amazingly named Biden Act grant, which would provide money to state enforcement, a very substantial amount of money, almost $30 million. And the document supporting it that you can find on the internet suggests that there's no personnel impact. As I understand Senate Bill 5, items have to be a review item. If there's a personnel impact, we're losing or adding personnel. I know the state police are very capable, but spending $29 million without any personnel impact is pretty difficult. And if you look at the actual document, it goes on and on about how it's intended to enforce, to increase our enforcement of the the federal immigration laws, and it explains in quite the detail how much time and energy it takes to arrest even one person. I'm particularly struck that this is very interesting in that this is a federal program which we're being asked to enforce and use our personnel. I think that's a major policy decision if we're going to divert personnel. The grant proposal lists immigration enforcement as priority number 1, and the child molestation and things of that sort are down on the list on like 5 or 6. So this has big policy implications, has big personnel implications. We are already helping enforce the immigration law, and it requires multiple interactions between federal and state police to enforce what I will repeat is a federal law. So while normally we see a reduction in federal support for education, for research, for Medicaid, this one, they want to give us more money to do their job. I think that kind of a change deserves more than just listing it as a report and authorizing the ISP to go ahead.
So are you making a motion to change that from a report to a review item?
Yes, which I think would make it have to come back to the next meeting, because I don't think they're prepared to do the review.
Do you want to explain why?
Well, I think, as Representative Delaney, as you mentioned, the review items require either state match, new personnel, or an agency to engage in an activity that they're not currently engaged in. And I think, as you mentioned, this is something that the state police are already engaged in at some level, which is why it ended up as a report item and not a review item. That being said, I think, having them come back is, I think, in our opinion, not supported by the statute, would certainly hinder their ability to accept the funds should they be awarded the funds. Under the Senate Bill 5 language, agency can apply but not accept the funding until budget committee's been reviewed. But again, I think our position certainly is it is not required to receive budget committee review for the very reasons you yourself laid out.
Yeah, I think it's subterfuge, frankly, because you tell me you can spend $20 million and it'll have no personnel impact, okay? ICE, according to this, personnel, the state police has now interdiction personnel who conduct a minimum of 2 enforcement efforts with ICE each quarter and regularly work alongside local municipal officers. So we've added new tasks for our police to work with the federal authorities and the local authorities, and we're pretending that it has no impact. I was, by the way, very pleased that on my way here, I saw 2 state police actually arresting people for speeding. I've not seen that in years. So we have a mission shift here, a substantial mission shift, and we're taking federal money to finance it without deciding whether that's our priority. And all I'm asking is that the state police come in and explain that. And I think the answer is going to have to be, if they're going to spend $20-some million of federal money heavily using it for immigration enforcement, that's going to divert from other activities. Sorry, that's just nature. And I think if we let an agency say that we can do it with our current resources and cut off some of our work, that's how they can do it. That's the only way they can do it. They can do less speeding, less things of that sort. And let's be honest, they'll do less of arresting Joe Hoosier criminal. Just an ordinary burglar will not get the attention he or she deserves because they're not an immigrant. Is that the policy we want to have done without review by adopting a federal grant? That's my question. So I'm asking, I hope that someone with a vote will make a motion that we turn this into a review and invite the state police back next month, or next
I don't think there's any way we can do that. I think you can make a request to us to ask it to be a review item, just like you all asked to have NDOT come in. You can make the same request to us.
I'm doing it then.
Okay, duly noted. So I will add, though, those of us that drive 2.5 hours each way to Indianapolis once a week, we see quite a few people pulled over by state police.
Good, I gotta take that road more often.
Yeah, been doing that for 22 years. We see a lot of cars pulled over between here and Indianapolis. So, all right, so we have an agenda placed on the table for discussion. So with that, we're gonna do introductions. So Mitchell, we'll start with you.
Mitchell Long, Fiscal Policy Analyst for the Indiana Senate Democratic Caucus.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. Fadi Kadura, State Senator, District 30, Indianapolis.
Lisa Ackelberg, Deputy Budget Director.
Ed Delaney, House District 86, north side of Indianapolis.
Eric Gonzalez, House Democrat, Fiscal Analyst.
Gregory Porter, House District 96, Central Indianapolis.
Joe Habig, Fiscal Policy Director, House Republicans.
Jeff Thompson, House District 28.
Ryan Mishler, District 9, St. Joe, Elkhart, Marshall, and Kosciuszko counties.
Atlantis Richter, Director of Fiscal Policy, Senate Republicans.
Chad Ranney, State Budget Director.
Courtney Everett, Deputy Budget Director.
Kyra Helming, Senate Republican Fiscal Analyst.
Chris Garten, Senate District 45, all of Clark County and a portion of Floyd.
Craig Snow, representing District 22, Kosciuszko and Wabash County.
Kelly Akala, House Republicans Fiscal Analyst.
Randhir Jha, Chief Economist, Legislative Services Agency.
And I want to welcome Representative Jack Jordan from Bremen, Indiana, former instructor here at IUSB. So thank you for coming to our Budget Committee meeting. At this time, I want to introduce Chancellor Brian Pappas to say a few words.
Thank you. It was better before, wasn't it? 51% of our students are Pell students, 37% are first gen. We believe in affordability. Our tuition is $8,600 per year, not per semester. And we believe in excellence. We have faculty, staff, students, and alumni who are excellent. And we believe in community impact. 80% of our students stay in the region. We really believe in employer impact and workforce. Again, it is such a pleasure having you here. If there's anything we can do to make your stay better, we're here to do that. Hope you have an enjoyable meeting, and thank you very much for being here.
Thank you, Chancellor. I just want to say thank you for hosting us, and thanks for all you do for our community. And I will say I'm actually on the advisory board here, and a few years ago I speak to the basketball team. And so I brought my Titans Conference Championship t-shirt that they gave me with me, so I came prepared, Chancellor. So thank you for that. We'll go ahead and start the agenda. We'll start with the projects. First up is Indiana State Police.
Morning, and thank you for having us here today. My name is Mick McClanahan. I'm the Captain Logistics Division. Today I'm here before you to request the reallocation of fiscal year 26 R&R funds in the amount of $85,000 for the Sellersburg Post Rehabilitation Project. Initially, the project costs were given to us in the summer 26 for the upcoming fiscal year budget. There was an inflationary factor associated with that, and our project cost was $605,000. When project funding was provided us, we were only allowed $593,000 with a shortfall of $12,000 without even starting the project. Since that point in time, costs of materials, labor, and services have increased dramatically. So this is the reason why we're asking for the movement of fiscal year 2026 R&R funds over to this project to start and complete the project. Any questions?
Questions? All right. Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Next, we have the Adjutant General's Office.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, committee members, and staff. I'm Brigadier General Matt Brown, Chief of Staff of the Indiana Air National Guard. And I'm here today representing the Indiana Adjutant General, Major General Larry Munich. I want to thank this committee for all of its members for the opportunity to speak to you today regarding your Indiana National Guard. As we address our recent domestic operations, we continue to hold all those impacted by the Indiana flooding and rain in our thoughts and prayers as they work to rebuild their lives and communities. Between August 12th and 19th, the Indiana National Guard executed flawless 8-day emergency response to protect Hoosier citizens and stabilize critical infrastructure following the decisive leadership and swift authorization of Governor Mike Braun. Our forces mobilized in 24 hours to support the Indiana Department of Homeland Security during severe flash flooding. This deployment served as a critical life-saving lifeline, achieving 100% of its objectives safely and on schedule. In central Indiana, our teams escorted 63 stranded Hoosiers to safety, including 38 citizens in Indianapolis and 25 in Anderson. Simultaneously, in northwest Indiana, Guard members executed over 200 continuous hours of heavy equipment operations to reopen 260 roadways and clear 290 infrastructure sites by clearing 3,500 cubic yards of storm debris and driving over 1,000 dump truck miles. Our personnel restored emergency service mobility and partnered with NIPSCO to rapidly bring utility power back to thousands of homes. Additionally, in the Carmel area, we deployed aircraft that was able to sling load over 80 sandbags weighing over 2,000 pounds each, preventing catastrophic damage to sewer infrastructure. Governor Braun's rapid action and seamless interoperability of our soldiers ensure the Indiana National Guard remains ready to safeguard our state at a moment's notice. This unwavering commitment to duty links our modern domestic response directly to the historic legacy of excellence that defines our organization. This week, Indianapolis is proudly hosting the 148th NAUGUS, or National Guard Association of the United States, General Conference and Exhibition. During the opening ceremony on August 29th, the legendary Indiana Rangers of Company D, 151st Infantry Regiment, will receive a historic, long overdue Presidential Unit Citation for extraordinary heroism during the Vietnam War, a powerful reminder of the elite standard our Guard members maintain to this day. That same elite standard is on display right now as more than 50 members of our Air National Guard are deployed overseas in direct support of Operation Epic Fury. Furthermore, our 122nd Fighter Wing, the pride of Fort Wayne, recently transitioned to the F-16s and successfully executed a round-the-clock aerospace defense mission for Operation Noble Eagle from April 1st to June 30th of this year, maintaining continuous 24-hour flight operations to secure North American airspace. This unit's unparalleled dedication to state and nation is why Fort Wayne boasts one of the strongest recruiting epicenters in the country, maintaining a current personnel strength of nearly 110%. However, the 122nd is now locked in a fierce multi-state competition to secure the next generation F-35 fighter jet, a designation that would solidify Fort Wayne's fighter role in defense economic impact for decades. Our competitors are investing heavily. For example, the Michigan State Legislature recently approved $152 million in state funding to upgrade Selfridge Air National Guard Air Base. While Fort Wayne is one of 9 F-16 wings competing and will score exceptionally high in performance and readiness, our outdated infrastructure will hold us back in the final scoring. Therefore, we are here today requesting state funding for 2 specific projects that will jumpstart base modernization that's already underway and keep Indiana leading the future of aerospace defense. The first of these 2 critical projects is the Squadron Operations Building redesign, requesting $517,300 in state funding. This request delivers the final 100% design work required to renovate 22,638 square feet of existing Fort Wayne facility over the next 2 years. It will construct a mission planning cell, a secure vault area, upgrading the site to meet basic standards for modern F-16 operations, and maximizing the weapon system's full capability. While federal funds covered the initial 35% concept phase, this state injection ensures the design proceeds without delay, positioning the base to secure a subsequent $8.8 million federal construction investment that has already been requested. The second project requests $500,000 for a comprehensive area development plan to map out our future F-35 infrastructure requirements. Established in 1947, the Fort Wayne base must look beyond its current F-16 operations and plan now for the next generation of aircraft. Because the National Guard Bureau does not provide federal planning funds until after the final basing decisions are made, Indiana must invest now to remain competitive for the headquarters U.S. Air Force basing decision, which is occurring in the next 18 months. This $500,000 state funding request will deliver a vital modernization roadmap, mitigate a high-risk security and logistics challenge caused by a bisecting Norfolk Southern Railroad, and position the 122nd Fighter Wing to secure an F-35 aircraft delivery by 2034, ensuring the long-term credibility of the Indiana Air National Guard. Mr. Chairman, thank you again for your time, and I'm prepared to take any questions you might have.
Questions? All right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next up, we have Department of Natural Resources.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good morning, members of the committee. I'm Greg Sarles, Deputy Director and CFO for the department. I hope each of you enjoyed your visit to Potato Creek yesterday. We certainly enjoyed having you. DNR has 3 capital projects on the agenda today, and I want to thank you for the opportunity to present those. All 3 of today's projects will provide our visitors with facility improvements and better guest services and safety improvements. The first project, DNR requests $1,100,000 for the replacement of a commercial water slide at O'Bannon Woods State Park. The pool facility at O'Bannon Woods was originally constructed in 2006. O'Bannon Woods will continue to drive visitation for the ever-popular destination. The group camp, an extremely busy campground, is of vital importance and drives our revenue. While DNR has modified some of our swimming operations, we've returned some of our pool facilities to beaches, and we've also experimented with spray pads. O'Bannon is one of the 5 commercial water slides that DNR would like to maintain in the future. We've experienced a loss of pool revenue at O'Bannon of $71,000, as well as pool concessions and entrance and camping fees and group camp. Due to the design configuration, lifeguards have difficulty keeping swimmers restricted to just the pool area as they want to venture out into where the slides were once located. So that's caused us some issues, safety issues. And then obviously customer complaints are huge in a community of that size.
Senator.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Sorrells, can you just explain, I'm just genuinely intellectually curious, what kind of slide are we getting for $1.1 million?
So it's the large tubular slide. I think they're 36 feet. The expensive part is not the actual slide, it's the steel infrastructure. And that's actually where our difficulty comes in. The chlorine is very corrosive in it. We've replaced at Shakamak, that I'll talk about next, and O'Bannon, we've replaced that structure twice. But that's...
So, you know, I just can't help myself. I asked this amazing technology called the internet to find me the most expensive commercial slide online it could find. And it came back with a 72-foot commercial slide at $133,800.
Yeah, I can assure you, and I guess I'll give you an example. We have a slide very similar at Lieber, and just doing the gel coating on that is $300,000.
I'm not debating that we can't go find one for $1 million. I believe we can do that. We're government. We're really good at overspending. Did we bid this out?
So we have had engineers' estimates, we've replaced them.
Trust me. No, I believe that too. We love getting engineers involved. I have no doubt about that. But how did we come, I just cannot understand how we're gonna spend $2.2 million, because you're getting ready to make another request for the same thing, on a slide, and the justification is we lost $71,000 in revenue.
In pool revenue.
Correct.
There's other auxiliary revenue that we lose as well.
This is amazing to me, Mr. Chairman, that we're gonna operate like this in government. I cannot understand how we're gonna justify spending $2.2 million in taxpayer dollars on pool slides.
If I might, Mr. Chairman, I have some questions for the witness.
Representative Delaney.
Yeah. I need to understand something. What is the cost of simply the device, the circular tubes of plastic? I think we've all seen these or been on these things with our grandkids. What does that cost?
So I think they're around $350,000 for the actual plastic
For that?
piece. Yes.
Then you have to install it, fix the ground underneath it, put all these metal supports. Is that where the cost comes in?
That's correct.
Okay.
And it's about a 50-50. I mean, your labor is about 50% of that as well.
So half of it is labor. Now, and your losses, if I heard you right, you got about $70,000 in direct revenue. People pay to use these slides?
So there's an entrance fee into the pool.
Right.
And that's the $71,000.
Okay. That's the shrinkage you've had because you don't have this attraction.
That's correct.
Okay. And then there's concessionaires, private companies that make money by selling candy or whatever to these kids, right?
Correct.
Okay. And then there's the gate fee. Have you had do you think you've had a reduction in the people coming through the gate because this attraction is missing?
We've had a reduction in the gate fee, although we don't track that
Right.
specifically for the pool.
That would be very hard to do, okay. So all in, you think this is a valuable contribution to activity at the park?
I think it'll have about a 10-year payback, honestly.
Okay. And meanwhile, the kids and their parents get to enjoy this. Okay, all right, thank you.
Other questions? Senator Garten.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. How fast would the payback be if we bought 5 72-foot slides? At half the price of the one you're putting in, it's half the size.
I mean, it should reduce that, I mean, accordingly, I mean, 5 years or less. But I think what we do a lot of times, and we've experienced with playground equipment and slides, if we buy a residential quality at the use some of those pool facilities have, they don't last nearly as long, and/or you end up with injury, safety hazards.
Again, just for clarity, that's not what I'm suggesting. I'm not suggesting residential products on a commercial usage. I'm suggesting commercial usage in commercial products. So I'm just trying to understand why the expense, and I just can't understand the justification. I fully understand that we're government and we can find a product to cost whatever we want it to cost. I'm just suggesting I think we can find a product that's just as good that accomplishes the same thing for a lot less money. And I just wish our agencies and government would focus on that more often than it seems like they do. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Other questions? All right, next project.
The next project is the almost identical project at Shakamak State Park, originally constructed in 1990, and we've gel coated this one twice. It's just literally worn out. Shakamak has a group camp facility that basically drives pool visitation there. They too have had about a $70,000 reduction in pool fees. But Shakamak's group camp is just absolutely rich with history. It's a tradition and a favorite spot for the week-long 4-H campers. And without that slide, without that pool being open, we have had just a flurry of customer dissatisfaction and complaints. So we look forward to reopening, the facility. And I guess to further explain, I think we hope those water slides come in cheaper than that 1.1 million. But we don't know that until we bid. And that will, ultimately set that cost.
Questions? Same questions? I assume same questions as the previous project. All right, so I'll ask this question. So yesterday when we toured Potato Creek Inn, you're building like a whole, not just a water slide, but like a whole indoor water park. So how much revenue do you anticipate, are you projecting that water park alone will bring in for the inn?
So we typically look at that as just a value-added feature for those guests. We sell, I think it's $4 per person for entry, and I don't think any of our pools are making a massive amount of money, but they're giving our occupants something to stay. I know on a personal level, you're out traveling, you call, and you won't stay somewhere that doesn't have a pool. So I think that's part of that drives that overall revenue.
So I think what you're trying to say is that the pool might bring in overnight stays, but wouldn't exist if the pool wasn't there.
Yes.
Okay, so that's how you're factoring your increased revenue.
Right.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? All right, thank you.
Then my third and last project is $1.2 million for critical telephone system upgrades and network integration at 73 buildings throughout DNR. DNR, in cooperation with the Indiana Office of Technology, or IoT, will replace the nearly extinct copper wiring with fiber optic cabling at 5 DNR properties. Telephone systems will be upgraded at Harmony, Shakamak, Deem Lake, and Tippecanoe River State Parks, and Obannon Woods. This project will also replace emergency call boxes in remote areas that don't have adequate cell coverage. And the work will be conducted by our construction services section, management information services, and IoT. We actually bury the fiber optic cable. Is where our cost savings comes in.
Questions? All right, thank you.
Thanks.
Next is the Maumee River Basin Commission.
Good morning, Chairman Mishler, members of the Budget Committee and staff. The Maumee River Basin Commission is requesting funding for Allen County stream studies. The flood insurance rate maps for eastern Allen County haven't been updated for over 20 years. We will work with Allen County to perform detailed hydrologic and hydraulic modeling, which will be submitted to the Federal Emergency Management Agency for a letter map change. This will allow property owners to pursue improvements and land developers to move forward with their county-approved projects. At the present time, they cannot do that. We're requesting $254,660 to match up with the $63,665 in local match for a total project cost of $318,325. The split would be 80% state money and 20% local match.
Questions from the committee? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have Department of Homeland Security.
Good morning. My name is Devin Burks. I'm the Chief Financial Officer with the Indiana Department of Homeland Security. I am here to present 2 capital projects. But first, I would like to pass along a message from the DHS Executive Director, Jonathan Whittam. In his words, members of the committee, I'm sorry I can't be with you in person today. My plan was to present on several important agency projects, but Mother Nature had other plans. I want to take a moment to thank you and your colleagues for supporting the Indiana Department of Homeland Security these last few weeks as we've navigated what will likely become the largest and most expensive disaster in state history. We would not be able to help Hoosiers and communities bounce back as quickly as we have if it weren't for your support. And with that, the fiscal responsibility. If you have any question about the state's response to the disaster or comments about improvements, any areas of opportunity that we could make for future disasters, please reach out to Jonathan directly, or I would be happy to collect those questions, but I will try my best to answer what you have. Would it be okay if I started with the capital projects and go from there? Okay. First on the agenda, the Indiana Department of Homeland Security, working with one of its more recent offices, the Office of Emergency Communications, formerly the Integrated Public Safety Commission, or IPSC. They are requesting, they started with us July 1st, so it's still a new addition, requesting funding for a series of rehabilitation projects across the state for several towers. The funds will support several HVAC units, repairing roofs, upgrading tower lighting for safety, purchasing some radio monitors, replacing generators, and if there's anything left, any other touches we can to ensure that the site is safe, secure, and standing upright.
Questions? You can go to the next one.
Perfect. All right, this project is for an alternate state emergency operations center, which what has been going on is a perfect segue to some questions. IDHS is requesting funding for the completion of an alternate state emergency operations center at the 5 Points Logistics Facility in Indianapolis. The existing 1,600 square foot warehouse will house a 4,000 square foot space that is to be renovated to meet that need. The project includes construction of the EOC, or Emergency Operations Center, offices, classrooms, restrooms. The alternate EOC will allow continuity of state emergency management response and recovery operations during and after emergencies. So to build on that, I've spent the last 2 weeks down in the EOC, which is in the Government Center South building, helping folks across the state. And if you've ever seen a movie with NASA or airspace, and you see the room with all the monitors and all these people working to help, the EOC is like Houston. You know, we are there to connect people and offer assistance in a quick fashion. So that helps me kind of conceptualize the purpose. Any questions?
Questions? No, I do have a comment though. You know, we're real quick to criticize, so I will compliment your communication on all this disaster, the Zoom meetings you've had with the members, the email updates that we get on a daily basis. I mean, I'm fortunate that my district wasn't hit by any of that, but I think we all want to keep track of what's happening. So I just appreciate the communication you've had with the members, so you can take that back. So thank you for that.
Will do, thank you.
Senator Cadora.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to echo what you just said. My district was hard hit, especially in the Ravenswood neighborhood and south of my district, Rocky Ripple. And on your team specifically, Alyssa, the Deputy Chief of Staff, has been amazing. And I just want to say thank you for the ongoing communication with the members of the General Assembly. It's been extremely helpful. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Anyone else? All right, thank you.
Okay.
Next, we have Evansville Psychiatric Children's Center.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and members of the State Budget Committee. I'm Jeff Wedding, and I'm a superintendent with the State Psychiatric Hospital Network under the Indiana Family and Social Services Administration's Division of Mental Health and Addiction. I'm also joined today by Ryan Morton, the Assistant Superintendent at Evansville Psychiatric Children's Center, and Christian Maciel, the Assistant Superintendent at Logansport State Hospital. We are here today to discuss 3 appropriated projects, one for our Evansville Psychiatric Children's Center campus, and 2 for our Logansport State Hospital campus. The Evansville Psychiatric Children's Center is located on 38 acres in Evansville, Indiana, and has been serving children ages 5 to 13 throughout the state with serious emotional and psychiatric disorders since 1966. The project we're pursuing for this location is a roof replacement for all 3 flat roofs of the 3 buildings that are on the EPCC campus. These roofs are well past their useful life, as patching and repairs are no longer able to keep water from entering these buildings, and cracks have now become too large to repair. The facility was recently cited by the accrediting body, the Joint Commission, for having noticeable leaks. The scope of this project is to remove the existing membranes from the residential building, the administration building, and the gymnasium. A total of 38,700 square feet of roofing will then be replaced with a 30-year polyeso membrane. We're seeking the release of $832,000 appropriated for this project, and Evansville Psychiatric Children's Center staff are prepared to work with IDOA Public Works and the state's JOC program as soon as possible. Happy to answer any questions.
Questions? All right, thank you.
Okay. Our next appropriated project that we are seeking is for Logansport State Hospital. This hospital is located on 260 acres in Logansport, Indiana, and has been serving Indiana citizens with serious mental illnesses since 1888. Logansport continues to serve as the hospital with the most acute forensic patient population and occupies the oldest state hospital campus in the state. The first project we are pursuing for this location is to complete some significant repairs to the walls and damaged spaces in the Larson Treatment Center. Due to the nature of the patients served in this space, the walls, the doors, the soft spaces are frequently punched, kicked, and susceptible to contraband. The current environmental conditions do pose a threat to patient and staff safety. The scope entails replacement of the existing drywall, drop ceilings, and flooring in these patient areas with more durable materials, including the replacement of wooden doors with steel doors, hardening the ceilings, and addressing other spaces that patients have damaged. We are seeking the release of $1,925,000 appropriated for this project, with work to be completed by jock contractor upon release of these funds.
Questions? All right, next. You get the button.
There we go. Our final appropriated project is to update $500,000 gallon water tower on the Logansport campus. This was built in 1966, and the tower provides water to 3 state agencies on the campus, including FSSA, DOC, and NDOT. The water tower also helps provide water to the cottages located on this hospital campus. The water tower was last serviced around the year 2000, and Legionella has been detected in trace amounts on some of these areas and remediated when discovered. The tower needs cleaning and rehabilitation to ensure continued use and prevent contamination. Some of the repairs require cathodic protection system on the interior of the tower to prevent corrosion and updating the aviation lights to prevent accidents with aircraft. There are also some repairs that are required by IDEM, Indiana Department of Environmental Management, and these include installation of a handrail, modifying the overflow pipe discharge, and replacing some screens in the overflow discharge, as well as an installation of a vandal-resistant guard on our ladder. We are seeking the release of $900,000 for this project, and Logansport State Hospital will work directly in coordination with DPW to complete.
Questions?
All right, thank you, committee.
That was the last project, so we're going to move on to university projects. I think we have 4 of them. So we'll start with Indiana University.
Good morning, Chairman Mishler, members of the committee. Zach Smith-Howard, Director of State Relations for Indiana University. On behalf of President Witten and the IU Board of Trustees, we request approval to proceed in renovating the Wilkie Quadrangle on the IU Bloomington campus. This project will renovate Wilkie Quad buildings A, B, and C, totaling approximately 325,000 gross square feet, inclusive of 742 rooms and 752 beds. The scope of the work includes full renovation of student rooms and renewal of elevators, roofs, stair towers, and necessary infrastructure upgrades on the mechanical, electrical, plumbing, and life safety systems. Existing public spaces and amenities will be refreshed alongside accessibility improvements, audiovisual, and access control, as well as security system upgrades as required. This project addresses the university's growing need for updated housing on the Bloomington campus. Renovations will replace aging and failing critical infrastructure within the complex, including much-needed addition of outside fresh air to student rooms. Newer, more energy-efficient systems will be installed. And for reference, the quadrangle was originally constructed in 1965, and it was last renovated in 1998. We will be using a little under $30 million in housing reserves, and then the additional $30 million will come from Treasury commercial bonds. Happy to take any questions.
Questions? Representative Porter.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In regards to your commercial bonds, who's guaranteeing those bonds? Could you unpack that for me, please?
Correct. So under Indiana Code 2132-2-2, IU has authority to issue interim financing, including commercial paper. The state budget director approved our $200 million commercial paper program in 2023. Therefore, Representative Porter, we plan to issue the paper as well as get the required approvals from the state budget director when we're ready to start the project.
That's not the current budget director, right? Oh, okay. I just want to take it off his plate. All right. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Other questions? All right. Thank you. Next, we have Purdue University.
Good morning, everyone. Kendra Leatherman, Director of Government Relations for Purdue University, here today on behalf of our Board of Trustees requesting approval to proceed with updates to the Armory on our West Lafayette campus. These updates are part of our annual repair and rehabilitation plan. The project will include replacing part of the building's first floor mechanical system and renovating 2 classrooms. As you might expect, the Armory supports the instruction and activity for programs that prepare our students for leadership roles as officers in the U.S. Armed Forces. The majority of the Armory's first floor is the drill floor adjacent to the head house where the classrooms and the Army offices are located. Doors between the 2 spaces will be replaced to provide better air barrier between these areas and prevent cooling loss from one to the other. New fan coils, ductwork, controls, and piping will be installed to serve the centrally scheduled classrooms and the adjacent office space on the first floor. The classroom renovations will include new equipment, flooring, furniture, and improved lighting, and the total estimated project cost is $3.55 million and will be funded by operating funds. Happy to take any questions.
Questions? All right, thank you. Next, we have Vincennes.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, staff. Good to be with you. I am Tony Hahn, Vice President of Government and Legal Affairs for Vincennes University. I have 2 projects for your consideration today, both of which are on the Vincennes campus and both of which are resident halls. The first is the Marie Elizabeth Godere Resident Hall upgrade, estimated at $23 million, and that will be financed by revenue bonds, which are authorized by statute. The Godere Hall was built in 1987. It's about a 93,000 square foot residence hall. Has 202 rooms in a very traditional resident hall style, shared rooms, common bathrooms. Our plan for Godere is to completely renovate it and turn it into a suite style extended stay with bathrooms in each room, a little more space, to support our apprenticeship and workforce housing programs that we've developed in the last 6 years. We currently host apprentices from Amazon, Walmart, Cummins, John Deere. We're in discussions with many other companies. Employees come to campus, live in our resident hall for anywhere between a week to 13 weeks, and receive apprenticeship training while they're employed. This will be a much more attractive and modern housing option for those apprentices who are often in the 30s to 40-year-olds. So the traditional residence hall isn't as attractive. Again, this will be financed by revenue bonds, which are backed by the revenues of those halls. This will result in no change in square footage, but will result in a smaller number of rooms because of the expansion of the suites to about 134 rooms. Total estimate is $23 million.
Questions? All right, next one.
The second, also a residence hall on the Vincennes campus and financed by revenue bonds, is the Henry and Francois Vanderburg Resident Hall. That was built in 1990, and while that doesn't seem that old, it's still 36 years old. It's our largest residence hall, 113,000 square feet, 432 students, and it really has not been updated with finishes and bathrooms in its lifetime. So this $12 million project would extend the useful life of the facility, which is our most popular residence hall. It would renovate the bathrooms, upgrade the plumbing fixtures, install more efficient LED lighting, importantly, update the technology capability for common study space and the students. This will also be financed by revenue bonds issued all at one time for a total of $35 million. Any questions?
Questions for Tony? All
Thank
right,
you.
Thank you. Next, we're going to move to the review items. We're going to start with the Department of Health.
Good morning. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee.
I am Ethan Wright, the Legislative Director for the Indiana Department of Health. I'm here today regarding amendment to the Indiana Department of Health's newborn screening rule. The primary change here is the addition of 4 conditions to the newborn screening panel. To pay for that work, this change raises the newborn screening fee from $120 to $135, as well as provides for a fee for medically necessary repeat screens. Indiana statute requires every newborn to be screened for serious conditions that may cause disability or death if they are missed. The most recent rule update was in 2021. Since then, the Perinatal Genetics and Genomics Advisory Committee has recommended 4 new additions. They are Gaucher disease, mucopolysaccharidosis type 2, guanidinoacetate methyltransferase deficiency, and Duchenne muscular dystrophy. Those 4 conditions are expected to identify another 10 to 16 infants each year in Indiana. The advisory committee is a 16-member commission and is the mechanism by which new conditions are recommended to the panel. Any condition to be added must be nominated by a physician and reviewed by clinical experts who work with these diseases and can review the cost of treatment and the benefits of early detection. The commission is exceptionally judicious and is patient-focused. The newborn screening lab is ran by the IU School of Medicine. It's located in Indianapolis. The laboratory receives about 92,000 specimens per year for about 80,000 births. That includes roughly 12,000 repeat screens. One of the biggest changes here is charging for repeats. The repeats are necessary for a variety of reasons. Some preterm and NICU babies do not produce a reliable first result. Sometimes the specimen quality is unsatisfactory. Rescreens are also necessary at day 15 and day 30 if that baby is still in the hospital. The program has operated at a deficit, and this increase will provide sustainability into the future for the program. Statute requires the fee to be derived from the projected program costs. Most of the cost increase for these new conditions is tied to testing, metabolic formula, and wraparound services to families. This adjustment covers current operations, the new conditions, and the repeat screens clinical guidelines require. Thank you for your time. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Questions? Senator Cadora?
Thank you. Is this the time where you're going to talk about the increase in charge for the screenings?
The increase from 125 or
Yes.
120 to 135.
Yes.
What about the increase?
So the total fiscal impact for that increase in fee, who's going to pay it?
Mm-hmm.
And then when I looked at the Department of Health last year, the department had almost a deficit of, in that space, of $573,000. So how much that $10 charge or increase from $15 increase from 120 to 134, how much will that generate?
Yeah, so the increase for the $15 increase is 1.2 million, and then for the repeat screens, it's 1.62.
So you'll still be operating on a deficit?
No.
Maybe I misheard what you said.
Yeah, so combined the revenue is about 2.9 million, so for both of those.
For both of them?
So that gets us out of the hole and gets us sustainable.
And covers the cost of the additional repeat tests, correct?
Correct, yeah.
Okay, very helpful, thank you.
Other questions? All right, thank you. Next up, we have Department of Education.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, for the opportunity to present a grant for consideration. The Career Pathways Exploration Grant was released by the Trump administration in June of 2026 to help build infrastructure to connect Hoosier students to workforce opportunities in the state. 3 competitive priorities for the application: career pathways exploration, workforce readiness, and constructing a talent marketplace. All priorities that align to Governor Braun and Secretary Jenner's vision for Indiana graduates prepared to succeed in our new diploma seals. This grant is focused on building one-time data infrastructure for the state of Indiana to help promote career exploration, workforce readiness, and career-connected learning. That one-time infrastructure will become, one-time data infrastructure will become a sustainable state asset to support ongoing student achievement in the future. Open to any questions about the grant opportunity.
Questions? All right, next one.
Thank you.
Chairman, members of the committee, thank you. Paul Ketchum, Assistant Secretary of Education, here before you today to talk about a grant opportunity, the Teacher and School Leader Incentive Program. This is in conjunction, the Indiana Leadership Excellence and Advancement Program, acronym LEAP Indiana, is a statewide initiative designed to strengthen instructional leadership as well as elevate educator effectiveness in high-need schools. In cohort one, we have identified if we're awarded the grant, 4 schools: Goshen Community Schools, Muncie, Marion, and Beech Grove. And this proposal will run in conjunction with our TAG funding from the state. This proposal will help us build systems of support for teachers to make substantial and sustained improvements in classroom instruction and take on leadership roles while remaining in the classroom. Happy to answer any questions you may have for me at this time.
Questions? Representative Porter?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As you look at this teacher and school leader incentive program, it says a state match of $2.295 million. Was that in our state budget last year?
It is appropriated through the TAG, Teacher Appreciation Grant, is the state's match on this grant.
So it's utilizing teacher appreciation grants for this?
It is our way to say that we're leveraging state dollars. TAG is a program new to us last year, not structured as it is today as a teacher leadership program. We're trying to leverage the federal grant. We're showing the federal government we're using state dollars to grow teacher leaders in conjunction with this grant program. So it's appropriate dollars already for teachers who are eligible for that TAG grant.
So teacher appreciation grant, we would utilize those dollars to appreciate our educators. So now we're generating, so this is a matched dollars, right? So it's 900,000, no, 2.2 million, okay. And it's a federal match or award of 6.2. So.
Yes, so what we're doing, Representative Porter, is we're trying to give the biggest bang for our buck on investment, state tuition, state tax dollars in the teacher appreciation grant. So what we're doing is we're trying to create teacher leadership models that are able to be replicated across multiple schools. We're leveraging federal dollars to make our dollars, state dollars, go further.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. So let me just get this straight, because we appropriate just over $35 million a year for the TAG.
Correct.
So you're using $35 million a year to try to draw down an additional $2.5 million. Is that what I'm hearing?
No. What we're trying to do, Senator Mishler, is we have to, for this federal grant, we have to have matching grant dollars. We are saying that there would be, those dollars are already appropriated in the TAG program. Within that TAG program, as of last year, part of those tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 are teacher leadership. We're trying to leverage a partner to create a best practice so that we can amplify and give the best return on investment for those TAG dollars. This federal grant gives us additional funding to do that.
So I guess I'm confused. How much are you trying to draw down then per year from this grant?
Well, it is a 3-year grant at approximately about $2.2 million federal dollars per year. It's over 3 years.
That's what I was getting
Yes,
at.
sir.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Representative Delaney?
Yeah, I want to make sure I understand. I'm very happy, and I think Senator Garten would be happy if we're taking expenditure we're already making, renaming it as our in-kind contribution and telling our friends in Washington to give us credit for it. I understand that. But if I'm a teacher, is there going to be $2.295 million less going to teachers' pockets from grants because of this attribution? No.
No.
Okay, thank you. It's a way to work.
Okay, so on that, is it 2.2 million more per year to teachers' pockets? Are you adding this to the 36 million to go straight to teachers?
That would be an accurate statement. There are now 2.2 million additional dollars of federal money for teachers to go through this program. So in cohort 1, teachers who may be eligible for TAG dollars, Indiana state dollars, we are now going to leverage those federal dollars. But with that, there's the expectation that they go through a leadership program so that we can start to get some data about how can we sustain the TAG program to impact student outcomes more impactfully with teacher leaders.
$5.5 million going to the TAG, we'll have almost 38 million.
That's an accurate statement.
Okay, just trying to get this all figured out. So, all right, Representative Porter?
Yeah, you're right. You trying, but I'm not catching up. So So, but he said the money's going to a program, not necessarily to the teachers. The calls I got were that they were not being, getting compensated or being part of those grants, awarded those grants. So, but you said toward a program. So that's not going toward the educators, but it's going to a program for the educators, but they don't get any.
So the teachers who would be eligible for TAG, all those teachers will still get compensated. What we're doing is we're leveraging federal dollars in partnership with NIET to go through a program that also includes building level leaders who are not eligible for the TAG grant. So again, we want to create instructional leaders. What we're guilty of, Representative Porter, is we are guilty as administrators of taking our best teachers out of the classroom and making them administrators. The intent of this grant is to grow teacher leaders and still keep them in the classroom in front of students, in addition to leading their peers as teacher leaders. That's what would make them eligible for the additional TAG funding. So we are trying to, Senator Mishler's point, leverage federal dollars to implement a statewide program while not taking away any money or why not asking for additional appropriations from the state of Indiana.
Thank you.
All right, any other questions? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Any Office of Energy Development?
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee staff. Luke Wilson with the Indiana Office of Energy Development here today to bring to you the SPARK grant, which OED has applied for with the Federal Department of Energy, but has not yet received notification about. The SPARK grant we applied for is a $350 million program, $175 million in federal dollars, $175 million in third-party dollars. No state match dollars are anticipated. The SPARK program represents a rare win-win in the electric industry for the state. It builds upon Senate Enrolled Act 422 from 2025, which passed out of the House and Senate unanimously and encouraged the deployment of advanced transmission technologies, or ATTs, throughout the state. ATTs are technologies like reconductoring transmission lines or utilizing dynamic line ratings that allow you to utilize existing infrastructure and add more, essentially, electrons to that system. So you're using existing infrastructure and expanding that capacity. This allows new electric generation, both thermal and renewable generation, to come online, and for the state to bring in more electrons from cheaper sources, as well as sell electrons to other states that need them as well. We do anticipate this 4-year grant program, if Indiana receives it, to require 1 to 2 new FTEs for OED during this 4-year program. However, OED anticipates approximately $50 to $150 million in annual ratepayer savings once these projects are fully implemented if we get this grant. With that, happy to take any questions.
Questions? Representative Delaney?
I've got a guess, but I think it would be useful if you said who's making the third-party match.
It would be the electric utilities.
And do they get a rate increase or adjustment for putting that money in?
Yes.
So that's covered by the ratepayers ultimately?
Yeah, you're getting 50 cents for the dollar per investment, essentially, so for free with the federal match.
But so the ratepayer puts in 50 cents. It flows through the utility, but the ratepayer is the actual source of the money.
For 50%, yeah.
Okay. I think this sounds like an excellent program, and I noted, if I heard you right, that this will allow access for thermal and renewables.
Yes, sir.
We've had this problem that trying to get from homeowners, for example, renewable energy thrown into the electrical system may cost more than it saves. So this is an attempt to efficiently attract and attach additional renewable sources of energy.
Yeah, so you because you're expanding your transmission, your highway for electrons, and so you can add more generation.
And you're doing it without fattening the cables?
What reconductoring would use a different, I think it uses aluminum wrapped around titanium or something like that, so you're able to expand your capacity on transmission line by like 50%, using the same towers, same right-of-way.
Thank you very much.
Any other questions?
Mr. Chair.
Senator Cadora.
Thank you. I appreciate any investments in our network. So what happened with NIPSCO and the negligence that they've done over the last 2 weeks on the north side of Indiana? And what does your office, or what is your office doing to hold them accountable They're getting $175 million of taxpayer dollars to expand a network that benefits their profits. And we had people for more than 12 days without electricity. So can you help me understand what was your office's response to this issue?
Yeah, Office of Energy Development doesn't get into the more of the regulatory side of the utilities. I will say the Office of Utility Consumer Counselor filed their investigation request with the commission yesterday, and so that's now pending before the commission. During my time at the commission, I imagine, and I'm no longer there, but I imagine the commission's already had internal talks about sort of the process, sort of similar to the AES ACE situation with their customer service portal, sort of similar to previous issues of manhole covers in Indianapolis, and that there will be, my guess, and this is just my personal view of what may happen, an investigation into what happened, how can we learn from this crisis and this mistake, and how can we make sure it doesn't happen again.
So the 300 million investments, are those going to go to places where there are data centers so that they can support the increased demand, or will this be development in areas that are impacted where the grid needs to be improved so that this does not happen in the future,
Yeah.
like what happened in Gary, Indiana?
The primary goal is ultimately to reduce congestion on the transmission line, so it's going to go where there's congestion, because ultimately ratepayers pay for congestion when you can't get enough electrons to a certain area, your power prices spike on the wholesale market. So it's going to go where congestion is worse in the transmission market if Indiana's awarded this grant.
If awarded and congestion is reduced, will the ratepayers see a discount on their bills?
They would see, I would, yes, it's just, when does that happen? So does something go up 1% instead of 5%? That's where I think you see the change. So rates would ultimately, ratepayers would pay less overall than they otherwise would have without this investment.
So it will be a reduction in future increases, but it's not actual reduction from baseline of what they're paying today.
I hesitate to say that just because I can't say with certainty.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any other questions, comments, suggestions? All right, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Next, we have Department of Homeland Security.
Good morning again. All right, today I am presenting a grant, the Fire Prevention and Safety Grant, which is awarded by FEMA. The amount of the grant is $50,040. Match is a little over $2,000. The goal of this grant is through our state fire marshal and his training academy, the Public Safety Academy. They have worked with local fire departments and done a survey of carbon monoxide detector needs. And so the goal of this grant is to purchase over 1,600 carbon monoxide detectors for residents, for local fire departments to distribute.
Questions? All right, thank you. Next, we have Family and Social Services.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the Budget Committee. My name is Liza Sherman, and I am the Legislative Director for the Family and Social Services Administration. FSSA's Division of Mental Health and Addiction, or DMHA, is seeking Budget Committee review of the Behavioral Health Mobile Crisis Team Partnership Grant administered by the Federal Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration. The annual grant award is $750,000 per year for a total of $3 million over the next 4-year grant period. There's no match requirement for these funds, and no additional staff will be hired. The Behavioral Health Mobile Crisis Teams Partnership Grant is replacing the Community Crisis Response Partnership Grant, of which Indiana had been a recipient since 2023. The new grant will focus on enhancing existing mobile crisis response teams and the established partnerships within their communities to improve access to behavioral health services. Specifically, funds will be awarded with existing mobile crisis teams to improve integration with 988 and 911, enhance partnerships with local service providers, and strengthen data-driven decision-making. By improving integration with 988 and 911, mobile crisis teams will be more equipped to meet the demand to dispatch, cooperate effectively with 988, and foster productive partnerships with law enforcement and emergency departments to ensure timely access to effective crisis response services. Thank you for your consideration of this grant request, and I'm available for any questions.
Questions for Liza?
If I may, Mr. Chair.
Trincador?
Thank you. What was the amount of the, because I just recently learned that the previous grant was discontinued, is that correct?
Yes, so it was, the grant's essentially the same, the amount is the same,
Okay.
and it was just the name and
The
the,
name change.
yes,
It did not impact staffing or anything like that?
correct.
Great, thank you, appreciate it.
Of course.
Any other questions? All right, thank you. Next, we have the Alcohol and Tobacco Commission.
Good morning. Brian Bailey, Conservation Officer. Alex Vargo, he's representing the Excise Police. We're here representing the EPO-ICO Health Insurance Plan, and we're proposing the following updates. The EPO-ICO Health Insurance Plan respectfully requests a 7% increase in employer contributions for calendar year 2027. The plan has not requested an increase in employer contributions during the past 2 years, despite continued increases in healthcare cost. The requested increase will help maintain the financial stability of the plan while continuing to protect officers from premium increases and excessive cost shifting. The benefit plan highlights maintain employee premium contributions at current levels for all tiers, no medical plan design changes for 27, continue investment in Anthem's wellness engagement program to promote preventative care, improve member health outcomes, and manage long-term healthcare costs. Continue promotion and utilization of the Sword Health's virtual physical therapy program to reduce musculoskeletal claims cost, improve outcomes, and help avoid unnecessary surgeries and related expenses. Continue wellness and population health initiatives that have produced strong member engagement results, including our primary care compliance and adult wellness compliance that both were higher percentages in the Anthem Book of Business Performance. Continue efforts to promote preventative care, chronic condition management, and member engagement. And lastly, with our dental plan update, increase out-of-network usual and customary reimbursement from the 70th percentile to the 90th percentile. This change will help preserve access to care and reduce the financial impact on members who must seek services from out-of-network providers. Thank you. Any questions?
Questions? So is excise, you're asking for the same exact change, right, as DNR?
Yes, we are the same plan. So our board is comprised of officers from excise and DNR. And so Major Bailey's the vice chairman, and Officer Zimes is the chairman of the board, and he cannot be here today. So Major Bailey's stepping in.
All right, thank you. Questions? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have Secretary of State's office. Jerry?
Good morning, Chairman Mishler, members of the committee. Jerry Bonnet, Deputy Secretary of State, here for the Secretary of State's office with Kagan Prentice, Deputy General Counsel and Policy Director. We're here for a review of operational and dedicated fund augmentation for fiscal year 27, first and second quarter. This year, the offices have administered 3 complex primary election recounts across 8 counties. 3 districts across 8 counties work very closely with State Board of Accounts and State Police. Those recounts showed a 100% correlation between the tabulation from the voting equipment and the paper trails that we have from that, and so we're pleased with that. We've assisted Ball State University Voting System Technical Oversight Program in conducting 10 post-election risk limiting audits, which also showed statistical complete correlation between voting system election results and the paper audit trails we have for those. We're in the final stages of deploying and completing the modernization of the IT applications across all of our agencies that we've been working on for the last 3.5 years. We've completed our fiscal year 26 budget on budget with the budget agency's retentions returned. We've been working very closely with the budget agency on our current spending and revenue monitoring, and we're on track with all of those. So we're here for a review of 7 of our funds. Happy to go over the details of those individual funds.
Any questions about any of the specific funds? Just want to remind everybody, this is money they used to just pay on their own, but I think 2 years ago, we put in there that any money they take out of the funds has to come in front of Budget Committee. So that's what they're doing, where they used to just take these funds out on their own. So if there's questions about the specific funds or anything like that, going to pay the vendors. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
IEDC, Mark.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, members of the Budget Committee. My name is Mark Waskey, Senior Vice President with the IEDC. Today, the IEDC is seeking the committee's review of tax credit awards executed between June 3rd and August 3rd of this year, encompassing 14 agreements totaling approximately $13 million in awarded credits. Through these awards, the IEDC has secured commitments from these companies to create 850 new jobs, earning an average hourly wage of $37.70. The projects subject to these awards span 8 counties using 3 different credit types. Prior to offering our incentives to any company, the IEDC completes a thorough cost-benefit analysis to ensure that the state of Indiana receives a positive return on its investment. Additionally, all awards and credits are performance-based, meaning the company is unable to claim any portion of their credit award until the IEDC has certified the company's performance and compliance with statutory and contractual obligations. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Mark, I have a question. You may not have this handy though. So, what percentage of the amount rewarded is actually collected or distributed? Maybe is a better word.
Very good question, Senator. And it would vary depending on the program being used. But historically, what we've seen, say with our job creation tax credits, of the awards that reach the contracting phase, around 70% of those ultimately get earned and claimed by the company.
So it's fair to say 30%, because we put the money aside in the year we award them. So it's fair to say that that 30% basically sits in these funds drawing interest.
Because they're credits, it's not any appropriated funds. It's just credits that we commit under the $300 million annual cap. And the impact to the general or to the state would be through foregone revenue that isn't paid.
But we still have to deduct it out of our budget in the year it's awarded.
Right. I think they're tax expenditures, and so they impact revenue. So it's not a deduction from the budget. It is just as these credits go out, the $300 million cap is revenue that affects revenue that we would otherwise receive. We're not receiving because of these.
Okay, maybe I'm asking the question wrong then. So basically, we adjust for it in our revenue in the year it's awarded, and then if they're not actually earned, then it's added back to our revenue if they're not awarded then, in the end.
So, well, and I'll let Alana speak to this, but as part of they are already accounted for in the revenue forecast. So when we see the revenue forecast presented by the forecast committee, the $300 million has already been netted, right? Is that fair? Oh, you've not been on it, but Joe maybe I guess can.
Okay,
speak to
all right, that's fair.
But that should be correct, that $3 million has already been accounted for in the revenue forecast when we see the revenue.
I just know we account for it in the year we award it, even though it doesn't maybe go out for 10 years, 15 years sometimes. Okay.
If I might, Mr. Chairman, I think it's
Representative Delaney.
I think it's a two-step thing. If they have a taxable income and they've met the test, then it hits us.
Correct.
If, for example, they don't have a taxable income, they don't need the credit, don't use it, or if they can, they defer it. So it's a tax expenditure, I think that's exactly the right term. It's a tax expenditure that does not occur, or that does occur. 30% of the time, apparently, it does not occur, even though we planned on it, took a chance that we'd lose money, it didn't happen.
So that's on the credit. So when we do a cash payout, that's the money that's sitting in the cash reserves on, okay. So I'm mixing the two together. Thank you for clarifying that. Any questions? Senator Cadora?
Thank you. Good to see you. Can you, I don't have a question about this. I need a couple of follow-ups, if you don't mind, after maybe the meeting. I raised it in a previous committee meeting. Can you, Mr. Chair, I would formally like to request the committee to receive a report from IEDC on the status of data center incentives. I think last time I checked, it was close to $700 million, and I can't fathom that we are not paying attention to this as a state. The governor of Texas just placed a moratorium, Ohio placed a moratorium, and Indiana is exceeding $800 million in incentives, including some local incentives. And I think it might be helpful to know how much more we will be bleeding as a state with those dollars. So that's one request, Mr. Chair, that I would like to get your thoughts on.
Well, it's probably dwindling a little bit because I think the locals are putting moratoriums. And so if a local has a moratorium, the state wouldn't give any incentive.
So my understanding, I think 16 or 17 counties, last time I checked, had moratoriums, but not the rest of the state. I think there were like 80+ projects across the state that were still in the pipeline. I think, all of us are fiscally concerned about different things from Medicaid to different expenditures that come to the committee. Given how large this amount, you talk about as of maybe a month and a half ago was almost 700 million. I think that's just worth looking into for us to double check where's that heading.
Are those numbers you can get for us?
Absolutely. And Senator Cadora, we receive reports from companies that have data center exemption agreements with us where they have to report their foregone or exempted taxes every year. So we can get that information for you.
Excellent. My second and final, Mr. Chair, final question. Over the last 6 months, I've raised the issue that 800 workers in the Dyer Whiting area have been locked out of work from BP. The mission of IEDC is either to preserve jobs or attract new businesses and new jobs. The governor went there, took pictures, and told people they deserve a fair contract. And that was the last time we heard about this. What is IEDC is doing to help 800 families get their jobs back?
Appreciate that question, Senator. And the IEDC works very hard to work with businesses that are currently here, as well as those that are considering the state for new operations, and do what we can to support their growth here in Indiana so they can provide high-quality jobs for residents. While we don't direct companies to go into certain areas of the state, obviously Northwest Indiana is something that we've been paying very close attention to.
So BP exists in Indiana. They're bringing workers from Texas and other places at the expense of born and raised Hoosier employees living in North Indiana. So help me figure that out. 800 workers. How much of millions of dollars we spent to bring a job with 800, or a company with 800 jobs? I met with these families. I met with their families on the streets where their little kids were hanging out with them holding signs. A 10-year-old girl with her dad standing next to us crying that her dad lost her job. These people are losing their jobs. There are concerns in that community. They're getting part-time jobs, mowing grass and doing other things just to get by 6 months. I am perplexed and my blood is boiling. How can the governor's office and IEDC let this happen? They made calls to the Bears to bring the Bears to Indiana to attract businesses. I know this is off topic, Mr. Chair, but this is the third time that I bring it up. An agency that spends hundreds of millions of dollars to attract jobs We currently have 800 families, 800 workers that have been locked out by an employer in the state of Indiana, and the governor publicly said they deserve a fair contract, but none of the agencies have been directed to help in any shape, way, or form. And there were concerns, there were at one point some leakage in the BP area and some fuel issues and contamination issues. So all what I'm asking is that IEDC, that's their mission, that's their job, and we need a concrete plan to help these 800 families restore their jobs or deal with that issue.
I guess I'm not sure how the state gets involved in a labor agreement, though.
So the state regulates, IDEM regulates violation issues, which happened in the last 6 months by bringing folks from out of state. There were security issues. There were a couple of incidents that happened at that plant, reported publicly in the news. So the governor can apply pressure on them to bring qualified, trained workers from Indiana who have been actually in that. So while the governor can't maybe go and negotiate on behalf of BP, you can use the power of the credits, of the incentives, of regulations by the state of Indiana to protect our workers. Otherwise, we're sending a message that if you're an Indiana employer, and by the way, for the record, BP is a foreign company. It's a foreign company. It's not a Hoosier company. And it's taking advantage of Hoosier workers. So while I agree with you, there's an issue that the governor cannot negotiate between the employer and the employees. We've seen President Trump, President Biden, and others, when there were labor disagreements, that they applied pressure on some of these CEOs who are making hundreds of millions of dollars, if not billions, in profits annually. So I think my ask, I don't know all of the solutions, but my ask is that the IEDC is the State Economic Development Agency, and their job is either to preserve jobs or bring and attract new jobs. I don't know what's within their tools or the governor's office's tools, but I think they can apply pressure. I don't know what that pressure, if the governor needs to call the CEO of BP, or if they need to be incentivizing workers to give them new jobs in that region. I don't know all of the solutions, but I'm asking the IEDC to come up with a plan to share with us of how can we protect 800 families in that region. That's all I'm asking. Appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Representative Porter.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Question in regards to IEDC. We're data-driven, per se. So my question is, after we have the ribbon cuttings, and then we lose jobs, are we keeping track of the jobs that are lost after the ribbon cutting or the doors are shut? That's something that I've been interested in, because we could do a big splash. It's happened in Indianapolis with Carrier and things like that. But where are we? Are you getting that data? Are you retrieving it, or you just kind of just let it just ride off in the sunset?
Yeah, appreciate that, Representative Porter. And for agreements that the IEDC has with companies, prior to executing those contracts, we determine how many employees are currently at that facility and set that as the base. And if the company drops below that base, they are ineligible to receive the incentive from the IEDC. They only receive the benefit for new jobs and new investment that they make above what is already at that facility. So if a company is going through a workforce reduction period, with their annual report, we will see that activity on an annual basis, and regularly checking with companies to understand the situation, what is going on. And again, if they do fall below their performance goals, they wouldn't be able to realize the benefit of those incentives.
So you do that, right?
Correct.
So is there a way to get that report?
Happy to pull information for you. They're not annually, as required by state statute. We perform a jobs realization report, which effectively audits the last full calendar year of information that we have to determine how many jobs were created, the amount of incentives that were provided for those. And again, that is helping us to identify those companies that may not be performing as is required by the contract.
Yeah, it's basically a job audit. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
So I receive an email every year of that report. I thought it went to all members of the Budget Committee by statute.
It does.
Okay, because I get that report.
Must be going to spam for me.
Okay.
Mr.
Okay.
Chair.
Representative Delaney?
Yeah, if I could return to the data center question, I think Representative Snow and I were particularly interested in that. We had an amendment that passed, and as a result, there will be a report in early November from the Indiana Finance Agency that will cover as fast as we can how many incentives have been given for data centers, what the cost is, and many other issues. But we met with them last week, and the Finance Agency is taking this very seriously, and they're working with LSA, and I was told with IEDC to get the best possible information about the data center impact, the costs on utilities, the number of places, the tax incentives, and put that together in a package which we should receive at the beginning of November.
Any other questions, comments? All right, thank you. Next, we have the Medicaid state plan amendments. Secretary Rowe.
There he is, speaking of the devil. That's okay.
I believe this is your home area, right?
Well, I went to school here at Notre
Okay.
Dame, and my wife grew up here in South Bend, Indiana. And where's our host is not here. Where's the local senator? Yeah, he's not here today. Yeah, Senator Nezgotsky and my wife's family know each other reasonably well. So it's great to be back in South Bend, Indiana. I'll be going over to Notre Dame when we're done here, assuming I get out of here alive. So thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Thank you.
Particularly to the buffalo hunt.
I may need that. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee for having us today. We have several state plan amendments to discuss, some of which I imagine will have a discussion surrounding them. The first of that is HIP 3.0. And just for a bit of context here, some of the members here remember back when I ran Health and Hospital Corporation, we created the Wishart Advantage, and then in Governor Daniels' first term, we created, it was his first term, we created HIP 1.0 on a bipartisan basis, passed that with strong support from all four caucuses, something that was pretty unique in terms of healthcare. That, of course, was before Obamacare, and then Governor Pence and the legislature created HIP 2.0, which had a significant impact on the number of uninsured people in the state of Indiana. In each of those cases, of those expansions, from each of them were for able-bodied adults, and each of them had a component of it of personal responsibility for both wellness and payment in the program. So HIP 3.0 will take us back to the future. So we'll get into the DeLorean, fire up the flux capacitor, and return to a time when personal responsibility, fiscal prudence, and wellness mattered. Back to HIP 3.0. So we are executing here against HIP, the Senate Enrolled Act 2 of 2026, and I believe the sponsor of that act is a member of this committee. The HIP waiver was never created to be an entitlement, but federal court decisions limited our ability to run HIP as designed with personal responsibility and cost sharing. This waiver application will be seeking to formalize Indiana's Medicaid expansion, not as an entitlement, but as a program to further personal responsibility and wellness. What we will do is we will ask CMS to remove the expansion using a state plan amendment, and instead replace that with a 1115B waiver. We do not believe this will we have been told by CMS this will not this will have no effect on the 90-10 match that we receive for this this waiver. So there are several reasons we are doing this. One, a return to personal responsibility, and when I mentioned fiscal prudence, there is the chance that there is the possibility that as the hospital assessment fee stair steps down, that we may end up bumping into state general revenue funds to fund the Healthy Indiana Plan. That was never the intent of the original plan. I can guarantee you that, and I'm virtually certain it was never the intent of the second plan. So we find ourselves in a bit of a pickle, and to paraphrase, to quote directly, actually, former Representative Charlie Brown, this is a prophylactic measure on our part to protect the future budgets. He actually said that once to me in a meeting. A prophylactic measure to guard against the use of state general revenue funds for the support of the HIP plan. That is a decision which this action would allow future legislatures and governors to make if they felt it was necessary. So that's the synopsis, a very quick synopsis. I'd be happy to answer questions from members of the committee if they choose.
Mr. Secretary, just a note, before you arrived, Representative Porter made a motion to remove this from the agenda. So you may want to, at some point, have a conversation with Representative Porter.
Always happy to do that.
Okay. Any questions from the committee? Representative Delaney.
Thank you, Mr. Rube. Let's start with your last comment. Is it my understanding that under your proposal, this new mechanism to make this change, that you're protecting the general fund from the possibility that as HAF funds go down or other federal monies go down, that it would hit that the Medicaid would hit the general fund? Is that what we're trying to do here?
Correct, because one could make the argument that the expansion as it's currently structured using a state plan amendment creates HIP as an entitlement. And as you know, an entitlement must be funded by the General Assembly. So that was never the intent of the expansion, to put at risk future general revenues.
Okay, to put this in simple terms then, the risk of a decline in funding or the risk of a growth in the program will fall then on people, not on the state budget. That's the bottom line. It fall on the beneficiaries who will not get the benefit.
Well, I hope that doesn't happen.
Well, I understand your hope, but that's the choice we're making if we follow your program.
No, that's not the choice you're making. The choice you're making is you are allowing future legislatures and future governors to make that choice.
So the person who's receiving the benefit then is at the mercy of the legislature and the governor that happen to be in office when this decline in revenue occurs and that person is ill. That's the bottom line. You're choosing. The guarantee is to the state budget, not to the individual. And that's part of when you say that it's not an entitlement. It's not guaranteed.
You have looked at this as a glass half full, as a glass half empty. I would look at it as a glass half full. However, it's the same glass.
Well, I think you're looking at the glass from a different angle than the beneficiary is. I think that's the problem. And I think, what the heck is Medicaid? If I'm a patient now, I'm not a state budget official, I'm not an accountant, I'm just a patient. So I'm supposed to walk around saying, well, whatever it is I have, it's not an entitlement. That would make you happy, apparently. So it's not an entitlement, that's great. And I can't really count on it the way I could count on my private health insurance if I could afford it. Is that fair?
This is for the able-bodied working adults, ages 19 to 64. So in America, right, we have, and there are some people who wish it were not so, but in America, we have a employer-based healthcare delivery insurance system. I think we can all attest to that, right?
Largely so, yeah.
Medicaid and Medicare were created in the 1960s because there were some people who could not participate in the employer-sponsored healthcare delivery system of seniors, of
Right.
of.
I understand all
Right,
that.
okay,
I was
of
there.
Disabled people. And then in the 1990s, it was expanded to include both pregnant women and children in the individuals who were not capable of participating in the employer-sponsored
workforce.
health care. And the reason that we expanded to pregnant women first was not the woman, but the child,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
Understood.
Okay.
I
So-
think we understand the distinction. I think just you and I are looking at it quite differently. And I'm finding it hard to tell some of our people that you can rely on your insurance company, you or your employer paid a premium. At that point, they have an entitlement. They have a contractual right. But we've created another category where we have to tell them, you're not entitled and you don't have a contractual right. And if we choose
That's
to
correct.
change the program, we change the program.
Right.
And if it's a budget problem, you suffer the consequences. I just think we need to make that
Okay,
clear to people.
that's fine. In 1776, we had a revolution because we were not we decided not to be subjects, right? We decided to be free people, and this.
Mitch, somebody's not making a living and needs Medicaid isn't sitting around worried about whether they're a free person. They're worried about their health care.
Right, health care.
So I'll stop. That's my disagreement with you. It couldn't be more patent. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Mr. Chair.
Oh, hold on a second. Senator Godora.
Thank you. Thank you, Secretary Rowe. A couple of questions. What is the trigger in the plan amendment that, whether for current or future administrations to determine the cap? Because the language stipulates or makes the availability of language that you can cap the program based on appropriations. So my question is, what is the trigger for future general assemblies? Is it a certain percentage of the general fund? Is it, or is it a haphazard ad hoc
So
number?
we are not, if we were to implement a cap in the waiver, we would be precluded from using the 90-10 money.
Correct.
We do not have a cap in the waiver. There is no cap in the waiver. Future presidents, secretaries of HHS, governors, and state legislatures can deal with that problem if it becomes a problem. This may never be, this eventuality, I am hopeful, will never occur.
But the language said, I'm reading and it's like, it's directly, Indiana seeks federal recognition that HIP may operate only so long as sufficient state appropriations or other funding are available to support the program. And that's from page 9. So why is that language needed?
That's the current law.
I understand. So why?
We will not be implementing a cap because we would lose the 90-10 money immediately.
Earlier in your comments, you mentioned that future administration and general assemblies may act on this. So help me, maybe I misunderstood your comment.
Well, future general assemblies and governors may choose to not extend or pull back on the state plan amendment, on the waiver.
On the waiver, after whether the 5-year
Correct.
expiration,
Right. That's
because
correct.
it's a waiver, you can, after 5 years, you may decide, maybe future governor, not to renew
Correct.
the waiver.
That's correct.
And in that case, I can't imagine that a governor would want to lose, assuming the 90-10% match continues to exist in the future, or even 60-40 or 70-30. I can't imagine a governor saying, I want to pay for the full program from state dollars, so let me not renew the waiver. I can't imagine that. So I'm complex or perplexed about
Why I'm
language.
bothering to do this? Is that your
Yeah.
question?
Yeah, kind of, yeah.
Well, one of the reasons I'm bothering to do it is because I'm compelled by state law to do so. The other reason is I honestly believe the future legislatures and governors ought to have more flexibility than they currently do. Most other states have done the expansion using not a state plan amendment, but using an 1115B waiver.
My concern, if that happens in the future, now we have to keep our eyes open, is that I can already see a disaster happening with more wait lists for people who are eligible, even for the HIP 3.0, that if you cap it at one point in the future with certain funding levels.
You may remember that HIP 1.0 did have a wait list.
Correct.
Right? And eventually that wait list was removed by HIP 2.0. Right. But the legislature was willing to, back in 2007, when we when we passed on a bipartisan basis with tremendous leadership on both sides of the aisle, that piece of legislation, it had a hard cap of 50,000 people because actuarially, that's what we could afford.
Correct. Not to belabor this, I don't engage in, my dissertation was on public health, specifically in policy in the state of Indiana, specifically on the Healthy Indiana Plan 2.0, specifically, and how hospitals negotiated. And I was at FSSA at that time when former Secretary, Deputy Secretary Michael Gargano and Seema Verma, the whole crew was
Yes,
there. So you're familiar with the whole crew. So I was there when they led the expansion of the Health Indiana Plan 2.0, and there were lessons learned. So for example, the cost sharing piece, which is, I know that Big Beautiful Bill has, some guidelines on that. It was more waste for state government to be chasing $2 of power accounts rather than actually collect the dollars. So this whole theory, 79 publications, 79 research papers were published on a national level, and the aggregate data made a very strong correlation between collecting these $2, $3 or $10 with discontinuation of people pursuing health services, lack of compliance with their medication, all of that stuff. So this theory has been challenged. So I firmly believe in personal responsibility. And as my colleagues also said, we just want the people who are eligible and who qualify. But I find it, extremely, not data-based when we looked at research over the last decade that disproved that theory. Have you looked at research that you saw something different that can contradict my statement?
Whether the Big Beautiful Bill requires us to have some kind of copay, so
I understand.
that's the federal law that we have to comply with. Right now, what we're asking for actually is to be able to, if certain wellness behaviors occur, right, we're looking to roll back significantly those copays.
Based on the incentives, the wellness
Right,
incentives.
that's correct, right.
Well, I appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Can I just clarify something? We got 1, 2, 3, 7, 8, 9. We're talking about all these different things. 1 was a state plan amendment. In HIP 2, I have it backwards. It was a waiver. 1 was a waiver. 2 was a state plan amendment. And 3, we're looking to go back to a waiver.
Back to the future.
And if I'm correct, it's because with the waiver, we have more control, where under the state plan amendment, it's federal control, where we have more control of our destiny with a waiver.
Yes.
We're going back and forth here
You're
on
correct.
1, 2, and 3. Sorry, I had it
Yeah.
backwards, but we're going back to same as 1 on a waiver, so we control our plan.
That's correct.
You're correct, Mr. Chair, and I think my concern was in the General Assembly. I think Senator Garten and I had these discussions when Senate Bill 1, I think maybe you carried it a couple of years ago. We had a discussion. I think we are all on the same page. And I think I trust state government more than the federal government. And I trust that we can control our destiny. The difference of policy opinion for me was when I look at other examples such as the pathways waiver or the health and wellness waiver or the ABA waiver, and I see wait lists, and we were engaged in good, healthy public policy discussion about funding, sustainability of the program, and then potentially, I think the first iteration, I don't remember Senator Garten, the first iteration of the bill maybe capped it at 500,000 enrollees, and then it changed the language. It's been a couple of years, changed the language to maybe level of appropriation. I don't remember the details of it. My fear is that from a public health perspective, if you only cap a program based on funding, which is critical, it has to be sustainable, you're gonna see the balloon, kind of blow up on the other side of when you squeeze it. Emergency room utilization in Indiana, correct me if I'm wrong, I think reached 16.1%, the highest in the nation.
I don't know that answer.
So I'll tell you, if you Google it, in the last maybe 12 months, we are, I think, top 3 nationwide of the highest jump in emergency room utilization. So we can be smart on one area or by controlling the program, but you don't want to push people into emergency rooms, which will also raise the cost of healthcare, even for the private sector. So that's my concern, is that I want to be mindful of, I fully support my colleagues, well-run program, sustainable in the future, be sure that only those who are eligible on the program, but history tells me that FSSA had a lot of wait lists, and I promise I'll conclude this, Mr. Chair, in your committee in 2026, there's a lady on a different program that showed up in your committee that I serve on, and she was almost crying. On the Pathways waiver, her dad was placed on the waiver 2024, passed in 2025, and was still on the list in 2026. When I see these examples, and we're talking about HIP at this point, I don't want a future by which you have wait lists by which eligible people are gonna struggle. That's all. Thank you.
Representative Porter?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. But yes, before you came, I did make a motion to take this off because, we were kind of around in 1.0, hit 1.0. I don't think you were around in 2.0. And I think where we are right now, this is like a paper chase. Is because I think it's been, from my perspective, being around, it's been somewhat really punitive. You're right. Senator Miller and Representative Brown put together a great plan, and we move forward. My concern is that where we're going right now, you're right, we're going back, but it's detrimental to go back. When you got Arkansas and Georgia and Nebraska that's re-looking at what they're doing, why do we want to follow in those footsteps? We've had a robust discussion about this, so I'm not going to go on and on and on, but I'm just really concerned. And as you well know, a lot of us live it every day. We hear our constituents. We know what's out there. And, it's a cost shift. There's a lot of variables out there, Mr. Secretary, and I'm not necessarily hurt, but really discouraged by what I see that's going to happen to Hoosiers. And these are real people. These are real lives. The hospital's going to have to take care of individuals when they show up. So I just hope that even though we're talking about, the first time, I think the state paid for everything. Now it's 90-10, okay? But I just really hope that we don't continue to build back on a $5 billion surplus within the next year or something on the back of Hoosiers, or people who really need the health care, who really need this health care for their quality of life. It's about the quality of life here in the state. So that's my comment, and I'm very perplexed. I'm not angry yet because I kind of know, been around the demeanor about economics here in the state on the budget committee, and we love looking at money and taking pictures of what's in our reserves. So I will hope you would have a change of heart, and this committee will understand about the Hoosiers, because I tell you, when it hits your family, then you're gonna pay it some attention. If it's not hitting your family or your community, you're not gonna pay it any attention. And I would say this, I would soliloquize that it will happen, and it would hit all of us in some kind of way, unless you put your head in the sand. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Representative Delaney?
Yeah, I wanted to follow up on the copay thing, and I understand the need to comply. So the federal legislation from last year requires that we get a copay from adult age, working age people, okay? And we've set up a mechanism where they can, in effect, reduce their own copay by going in for their annual physical and doing things like that, okay? And that's a very interesting concept. I don't believe that private insurance companies change my copay depending on whether or not I take my pills. They don't change my copay whether or not I go to my annual physical. So it's interesting. We're conducting this experiment on lower income people. But the bottom line is, on most of our reports, we have to talk about FTEs. How many people will you be adding to monitor these quarterly verifications of eligibility and to monitor whether someone complied with the requirements to get a deduction, to get a lower copay? How many staff are you adding?
Okay, so the Healthy Indiana Plan piece has nothing to do with the quarterly checks. That's the next state plan amendment. But we will not have to add any people. The health plans simply need to put a trigger in their review of the claims that they process, and it's a computer. So it's a one-time change in a computer program.
The management companies will do this, not you. Right?
Correct.
And so they'll determine that Joe didn't file on time, or there was something wrong in Joe's quarterly filing.
No. We're so if you're asking how will we know
Right.
that physical therapy has occurred or that a dental visit has occurred, right, and therefore be able to reduce the copay, that's a very simple change. That's a very simple change done by and that'll be done by the plans, and we can audit that if necessary, because we get what are called shadow claims. So that's a very simple process.
That's a benefit of technology is what you're saying
Right, that's
in this
correct,
particular instance. Okay. So you're not going to be adding personnel to carry out these adjustable deductibles.
Correct. Right.
The company might charge you a little more for or they have a cost in connection with monitoring.
They would have a
setting this up.
one-time cost in setting
Right.
that up, but they charge us enough already.
Well, that's one of the more encouraging things I've heard, that it doesn't require hiring a lot of people to monitor that. And thank you for that. That's one of the few reassuring things I've heard.
Senator Gartman?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Representative Delaney, can you turn your mic off, please?
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
thank
I'm
you.
getting,
I've got-
no, that's okay. I'm getting a ton of feedback. Thank you. So a lot to say around this issue. I could start a lot of places. Let me start by first responding to Representative Porter. I do understand Medicaid because I grew up on it. I understand it more than most, quite frankly. So I understand the people that are on it, and I understand what it means to them. And I'm sick and tired of being accused, because it's happened 2 years in a row, and I'm not implying that you did it, but it's happened, of picking on our poor and our disabled because we're legislating in our space. For 2 years in a row, we've legislated in this space, Senate Bill 2 and 25, and Senate Bill 1 this year. And the people that certain associations have marched in to testify in those 2 years, not one person that's testified against this bill, either bill would have affected. Not one. Not one. I can't overstate that if I tried. And so it's important that when we talk about these issues, that we talk about the facts. We have a responsibility, not just to the taxpayer, but to the people that rely on these services. Because Medicaid is for two types of people, our poor and our disabled. And everybody on this committee has heard me say this. Any dollar that goes to anybody that's not poor or disabled is a dollar being stolen from somebody that's poor or disabled. That's my belief. It's important that when we talk about this, and we're talking about two different bills, and again, I don't think it was intentional, but I think we conflated two different issues in two different bills. Representative Delaney, you were referring to, I think, Senate Bill 2 in 2025. And one of the things I want to clear up about that is that program specifically, when we're dealing with work requirements, isn't dealing with the entire population. It's specifically geared towards our able-bodied working adults from the ages of 19 to 64. Is that correct, Mr. Secretary? Okay. Now, the other thing I wanted to highlight, though, is I believe there's 12 exceptions to those work requirements, and we actually we did those in Senate Bill 2 and 25, but we again cleaned them up in Senate Bill 1 this past year because H.R. 1 required us to. And so in Senate Bill 2 in 2025, it started out that there were 12 exceptions to those work requirements. It was everything from you could work 20 hours per week on a monthly average. We changed that in Senate Bill 1 this year because of H.R. 1, I believe, said you could do 80 hours over the course of a month instead of 20 hours per week. That way, if you had a spike in activity, it spanned the course of a month. You could volunteer 80 hours a month now. You could do a combination of the two. So you could volunteer and or work. You could receive unemployment compensation. You could participate in a substance use treatment rehabilitation program and satisfy that exception to a work requirement. If you're pregnant, or you're a parent or a caretaker for somebody who's a dependent child less than, I believe,
13
or 14 years of age, you're not required to work under this. There's an exception. If you're a parent, spouse, or caretaker personally providing care for an individual with a serious medical condition or disability, there's an exception for you. There's all these exceptions to these work requirements. And again, these are exceptions for able-bodied working adults. That's the thing I want to clarify around this conversation. And so I just want to make sure that when we talk about this, we talk about the facts, because it's a very complicated program, and there's two very separate bills that I think kind of got crossed and conflated. Again, I think it was unintentional, but I just want to clarify the conversation. So, and then Representative Delaney, the other thing I think you were getting at with the quarterly checks, you brought that up. Again, I don't think it had anything to do with this, but the reason that's so important is because we're dealing with a Medicaid error payment rate. And so right now, and I think it's improving thanks to Secretary Rowe's leadership, but in the past we were at about a 19.5% Medicaid error payment rate, and there's penalties now applied under H.R. 1. And the problem is, if we don't get down to 3%, I'm sorry, I said 19.5, is it 9.5? 9.5, excuse me. That would be about $1.2 billion with a big B in penalties to the general fund. And so that's why those checks are so important.
I do not object to compliance with
Sure.
federal law,
Sure.
even though I may not like the law.
Sure. No, I just wanted to clarify
Yeah,
that's why
I think-
those are important.
Yeah, those sanctions are very important, need
Sure.
to be made. But this is all the fruit of this overly complex system. This system is falling from its own weight. The administrative costs, both on the private side and insurance, hospital operations, and in this program are overwhelming, and I think that's why some of this anger is not just social policy. Some of it is, can't we be simpler? And playing the game, and I want to play this game, as Senator Mishler pointed out, that if a waiver is better for the state, we'll do a waiver. If a plan amendment is better, I mean, that's our job.
Sure.
But we're managing to this ever-changing set of federal regulations, and it's consuming, frankly, a lot of money and a lot of time.
Much of my time.
Yeah.
And one of the
Yeah.
things,
And he's enjoying it, unlike the rest of it.
well, and to your point, I think we all agree that anytime we can streamline these types of programs, we should. And one of the things we did in Senate Bill 2 and 25 is data cross-checks across agencies, and that should streamline a lot of these processes when we deal with eligibility. So that's one of the things we looked at. So, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Can I say one thing, Mr. Chairman?
Senator Dorr.
Senator Garton, first of all, I sincerely want to thank you for sharing your personal experience, because I think when we speak from a place of lived experiences, it shows the heart and the mind so thank you for sharing that. I just want to ask a question. You mentioned not a single person testified. I did not understand that comment. Are you talking about Senate Bill 2 from 2025 or Senate Bill from 2026?
I'm actually talking about both.
That not a single person testified in opposition to these two bills?
No. That not a single person that testified in opposition, that it would have affected their coverage.
Oh, I see your point. I see your point. Not an individual who came to
That's
testify.
correct. Now, they believe, now look, I want to
Yeah.
clarify.
Yeah.
They believed it would have.
Correct.
Because I think they were misled, unintentionally or intentionally. I don't know. I'm not making that claim. I do believe they believed it.
No, I appreciate you for clarifying, because I remember the debates on it. Many testified in opposition, but
That's right.
you're clarifying, you're saying not an individual who showed up to say, hey, my coverage personally is impacted.
That's correct.
I appreciate you for clarifying that. I think I'll conclude by saying this. I think, sharing your personal story shows the heart. I was raised by a poor family that did not have health insurance. So the difference in your case, you had Medicaid that probably covered some services, and this is the other side of the same coin, is that when you live with no insurance, what happens is that the first time you get sick, you have, especially if your family is poor, in my case, mom and dad only had high school education, that's it. So they were not making a lot of money. And we were never on Medicaid. But the point is that you're one illness away from losing an entire paycheck. And if you remember, the whole medical debt discussion and all that. So I'm just going to say is that I think this helps us bridge the gap when we share these lived experiences, to understand that we don't want to go after people who really benefit from the program, who deserve to be on the program. But I think all of us being more open-minded and open our hearts to meet with these people and understand, because I want to be honest with you, to all of my colleagues, not just Senator Garten, to the Secretary, the perception in the community among people, they're not being misled, but not everybody's engaged to understand a very sophisticated system like Medicaid. But they see 300,000 denials. They see 174,000 children in Indiana that did not get renewed in Medicaid. Some of them probably were part of the expansion, and it was an anomaly during COVID, and they need to be rolled off because they don't qualify. And we talked about that. But now my district, and I'll reserve this, or maybe I just say it now to reserve your time on the next agenda item. My district is hard hit by a disaster. If this law was in place today, I spoke with the secretary, I think yesterday. And I think there's a gap. For example, the work requirement, if there's a recession, I think you mentioned, Mr. Secretary, 8% is the threshold of unemployment.
That's my recollection, yes.
Right. But if there's a disaster that hits your area at this point, there's nowhere in this law that addresses specifically what would you do for that 90-day look-back period, or under current law, the mechanics of if you are employed, like some of these exceptions are thoughtful. If you're a senior citizen, if you have mental health issues, but I don't think the agency is currently set up actually to verify that someone went to their church and volunteered for 2 hours in the last 90 days to confirm if they worked. So I hope that maybe the details will be more cleared in the coming weeks before January 1st of 2027, because that's when the effective date's correct. Yeah. So I think that these are a couple of holes that need to be addressed that we spoke about yesterday. Thank you, Senator Gordon. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Representative Porter.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just one quick question, Mr. Secretary. Last year, we had a lot of discussion on medical fragile individuals. So do we have any definition from the federal government in regards to fragility? Because I know that came up several times, and it was looking for a definition.
Right. So this kind of gets into the second state plan amendment. So if we're done with the discussion of HIP 3.0, Mr. Chairman, I'm happy to answer that question, but it's more relevant to the second state plan amendment.
Okay, I sent that to you, let you marinate, so we can answer next time. No problem. Thank you, Mr.
Is there any other questions on the HIP 3.0? I will say, Senator Cador, I sat there in the House committee meeting with Senator Garten. I want to say it was over 4 hours. And we sat there and listened to every single person that testified. There was a lot of people. And Senator Garten and I were just kind of amongst ourselves every time saying, this person is not affected by this bill. They went up to talk about Medicaid, for sure, but not about the Senate Bill 2. What was disappointing is the criticism that he and I took from people that didn't even understand what the bill did. That was pretty disappointing. When you're trying to help people and you're being criticized otherwise, that just told me that people didn't understand the bill. So.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You've always been very thoughtful, and I appreciate you, and I appreciate Senator Garten. I think that we get criticized. I get criticized every single day and twice on Sunday for work that people might not understand. But I think I really always want to extend the benefit of the doubt to all of my colleagues. I love working with my colleagues, and I always start from a place that we're trying to do the right thing despite the difference in policy. My goal is one goal only. If you're eligible, if you're poor, if you need help, we don't want you to lose your livelihood just because you got sick and then you're left behind. So that's my only thing. I want to be sure that people in Indiana are not sick and struggling to make it to work, struggling to take their kids to schools. And I think if we have an opportunity to come up with a great program that can help people, that's all my goal.
Well, this is a great day because I think you've just said the same thing as Senator Garten about helping these people. So I think you guys are on the same page.
Yeah. He owes me a bill that I'll introduce next session, so we're gonna be working on it.
If you want to compare the credit and debit ledger, Senator Cador, I'm happy to do that.
We'll make the mathing again.
All right, so move on to number 2.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. It's a pleasure for me today to discuss the Healthy Indiana Plan work requirements. Now, we talk about them as the Healthy Indiana Plan. So let me first of all kind of explain what that means. It's only for the expansion population. For some reason, which is unknown to me, the previous administration put a number of people who were otherwise entitled to Medicaid into the HIP population. It's very confusing. It was confusing to our actuaries. It's one of the reasons why we did it. They kind of screwed up some numbers. It's confusing to members, to our staff. It's confusing to this committee. It's confusing to the members. One of the things that HIP 3.0 will do will make it an only expansion population. So prospectively, down the road some years, it'll be a lot easier to track. So this only applies to the expansion population, individuals who are age 19 to 64 and are able-bodied. That's the only population it applies to. As Senator Garten referenced, there are many exemptions. And Representative Porter, you asked about medical frailty, and so I'll answer that question now. The federal government has been sued by 25 states about their definition of medical frailty. So they have not come up with a final definition of medical frailty. We continue to work with CMS on our definition of medical frailty. We currently use a tool put out by Milliman. We will use a different tool put out by Milliman to evaluate medical frailty. That frailty, though, will be more limited than today's definition of medical frailty. It will be limited to individual. You will have to be, quote, frail, and to paraphrase, you'll have to be unable to work to meet the medical frailty definition. So you can be unable. There are people who have diabetes who can work. There are people who have diabetes who can't work. If you have diabetes and you can't work, you would not be subject to the work requirement. If you have diabetes and you can work, you would be subject to the medical frailty. There are also, one could also be medically frail for a short period of time. If you're in a car accident, if you fall off a scooter and can't work for a period of time, you could be found medically frail at that point. So hopefully that begins to address your question. Sure. So what we will begin doing on January 1st of this year is evaluating whether or not that individual who applies for the Healthy Indiana Plan expansion category has worked for 80 hours, has volunteered for 80 hours in three successive months. So you'll have to prove to us in October, November, and December that you've actually done those things, has gone to school, or is in a job training program, right? If you meet any of those criteria, right, that meets the community engagement or work requirement as we generally speak to it. The individual that will then be reevaluated at the end of sometime in April to discern whether or not, if they are qualified in the month of January, they will be evaluated in the month of April to make sure that they have in fact met the requirement in the month of January, February, and March, and so forth and so on. A full redetermination will be made in July in this particular case. So the 90-day or 3-month verification is a verification only that they meet the work requirement or other requirement. The requirement for a full redetermination is every 6 months, where we'll be looking at income. By the way, you could also, if you make an income of $580, you also meet the work requirement. $580 is 80 times the federal minimum wage. So if you're making $20 an hour, right? As long as you meet the threshold of $580, you meet the work requirement. So we've been through this quite a few times. We, by the way, have a great deal of outreach that we're currently doing to members of the House and Senate and your staffs. Some of you have been on those conference calls with us. We're doing outreach to everybody who may be eligible for the HIP requirement of expansion population. We sent over 500,000 mailing pieces. We've sent literally tens of thousands of texts to people, and we are working with provider groups from hospitals to federally qualified health centers to make sure that they can help the people who are on the Healthy Indiana Plan expansion population maintain their eligibility. It is my hope that nobody loses their eligibility. I don't know that will happen, but that is my hope, that nobody who is currently on the program loses their eligibility, because as Senator Cadora references, health insurance is important for many reasons. Health insurance is important because it for the physical, mental, and well-being of the individual. It's a significant guard against bankruptcy, medical bankruptcy, and it helps. What we found with HIP 1.0 was it helped with maintenance medication tremendously. But again, there's a level of personal responsibility that is inherent in our healthcare delivery system, and meeting those work requirements is one of them. It's part of the social compact that we have created in this country. So I'll be happy to answer questions from members of the committee if they have them.
Questions? Senator Garden.
I just wanted to correct the record. I think I was actually correct in my first statement on the last portion of this conversation. The Medicaid error rate in Indiana is 19.5. Our SNAP error rate is 9.5.
Was 9.5.
Was 9.5. Both of those, I believe, are trending down due to Secretary Rowe's leadership and the General Assembly's partnership in that. But I just wanted to correct the record on that. And so that's why that's important. So thank you.
Anyone else? All right. Number 3.
Okay, thank you very much. Number 3 is Home and Community-Based Services, the creation of a new assisted living waiver in pursuant to the requirements of House Enrolled Act 1277 that passed earlier this year. FSSA is seeking federal approval for a new assisted living waiver. FSSA has drafted the AL waiver to the letter of the law, including the use of existing pathways waiver slots for the new AL waiver, which using the best available data today totals about 6,500. If you wish to increase the number of individuals utilizing the assisted living waiver, I would ask you I would propose repealing the provision of House Enrolled Act 1277 that carves individuals out of the Pathways Managed Care Program if they are in a nursing facility for more than 100 days. Since the start of the Pathways program, our managed care organizations have helped over 1,400 individuals move out of nursing homes and into home and community-based settings, which are many of these individuals have transitioned into assisted living facilities. This has saved the state of Indiana $21 million in general revenue fund money. So again, I don't think it was the intent of the General Assembly to lock people into nursing homes, but that is the effect of continuing the 100-day limit. In addition, this waiver amendment makes the services of integrated healthcare coordination a required waiver service as prescribed by House Enrolled Act 1277. Today, integrated healthcare coordination is only approved on service plans when there is an assessed need and does not duplicate the services provided under complex case management provided by managed care organizations. With this change, there may be duplicative delivery of services. This was not included in the most recent Medicaid forecast and is projected to increase state and general revenue fund expenditures by $14 million due to the anticipated increase in utilization of integrated health care coordination services. I do not believe the legislature intended that, but that is the effect of the law that was passed. I would be happy to answer questions from members of the committee if you have them.
Questions? Senator Fedora?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Secretary, for your presentation. Question. The result of moving folks from the pathways waiver to the waiver created, assisted living waiver created by 1277, do you have any projections on any potential savings, fiscal savings?
Well, it's a waiver inside a waiver, right? It's not a standalone assisted living waiver. It's a waiver inside the waiver. We're not completely confident that CMS would allow us to do a waiver within a waiver. And we do not have projected savings on this. There'll be more than eaten up by the utilization of integrated healthcare coordination services.
So there's a chance that CMS could reject this?
Yes. There's a chance. CMS rejects stuff all the time. I mean, if we get it right the first time, you know, the balloons drop from Lindsay Lux's office.
Question. How many slots are you applying through this waiver to CMS for the assisted living?
We're 6,500.
Is that sufficient currently based on demand in the state? And if we help you with 1277 to unlock those who have the 100-day stay in nursing homes, over the last year, individuals that reached out to our offices have been stuck on the pathways waiver for a year or two. Mom, dad, siblings are not able to help anymore. They have jobs, they have kids. So they qualified for a nursing home level of care. What better option than instead of pending on a pathways waiver, they went to a nursing home that annually cost $100,000, roughly speaking, while the assisted living waiver costs about $30,000, give and take.
58,000, but okay. I see. I mean, it's a significant difference.
Well, then this new information about, I used to think it's between 27 to 32, but maybe the numbers have changed. So maybe half, so half of that. So my question to you is that if this change, people start moving back from potentially being at a nursing home into assisted living, would that 6,500 slot be sufficient? Do you project that the 6,500 will be sufficient? Or should we increase it to a larger number?
Well, let's see if we get the waiver on the 6,500 first, and then we can have a conversation about increasing the slots. I mean, increasing the slots means increasing what we're paying. They're not free.
The appropriation, you don't pay it unless it's occupied, unless the
That's
slots
correct,
are used.
right,
But the appropriation has to go up. Otherwise,
Or
people
will
go
be
to
the-
nursing homes and they would pay more.
Yeah, so so you've likely been told by the assisted living advocates that what you've just said, right? But what we have not seen is any increase in nursing homes. So I'm not saying it never happens, but I'm saying that our nursing home bed count is roughly the same before and after pathways and before and after the wait list. So we just haven't,
Since
fear has not come to fruition.
So since the passage of the establishment of the pathways waiver, not only assisted living, but even memory care centers, including from Evansville, Indiana, Senator Vanita Becker's area to other places, have reached out to me of people who struggled with the pathways waiver and the wait list. So what I'm thinking about it from both healthcare perspective and the dignity of these individuals and fiscally, I think it seems that if we get approved, too many ifs, if we get approved by CMS and you fill the 6,500 slots, you will have another wait list for that waiver, and we have to wait till potential next budget cycle in 2029 to.
No, you could add them in 2027, the budget's not.
Non-budget cycle in 2028, I think, which is not a budget cycle, but I think that's a Senator Mishler decision. And that's why I was trying to be on the cautious side. What if you go to 7,000 or 8,000 or 9,000 slots? You appropriate, but doesn't mean you have to pay it.
Well, I understand that. The legislature had the opportunity to make that change when they passed 1277, right? They could have commanded me to do that. They did not. So we're gonna implement the waiver to the letter of the law, as we will implement any piece of legislation that is passed and signed by the governor, whether I agree with it or not.
Remind me if you don't mind, did the bill specifically say that you can exceed the 6,500?
It did not say that I could not, but it did not instruct me to.
Right.
And and there is a budgetary effect of, I know Representative Delaney likes it when I talk about budgets, but there's a budgetary effect of doing that, right? And we returned, we had promised this committee and a return of $314 million to the Indiana General Fund, and I failed. We returned only $310 million. This year, we are planning on returning 150 some odd million, and that is, I take forecasting seriously, and so that's our intent.
I think we'll have a difference of opinion, Mr. Secretary. I think I've learned that over the last 2 years. You have a worldview of that the Medicaid agency is not in charge of public health in Indiana, which is true, and it's not in charge of improving health. It is managing the Medicaid population, and I look at it as a legislator differently.
Right.
If we're putting billions of dollars, it is more strategic to improve the quality of the health care, to reduce spending, but also to dignify people. So we're still gonna have that gap in our worldviews of how you see the role of Medicaid versus how I see it. But my final point on this, is that even from a fiscal perspective, even if we're just talking nickels and dimes here, aside from the $310 million that you promised to return,
14.
340, but you said you failed and it's 310.
I did.
So I'll stick with the 310. My point is, if we know that we pay more for nursing homes, the $100,000+, and you said we pay $58,000 for assisted living, wouldn't it make more sense to be ready for that and actually be sure that people who qualify for assisted living beyond that, which would achieve your goal? My goal would be achieved, that people are in the right place, the right program, and your goal of savings would be achieved.
I think that, I think the point that we've managed to move 1,400 individuals out of nursing facilities, many of whom were in for more than 100 days, many in for more than 200 days, right? And move them into different physical locations, frequently a assisted living facility, right, at a cheaper rate. That buttresses your point, right, that maybe that's the case. And we'll continue to have this conversation. I'm not averse, the governor's not averse to expanding those slots, but we need to do so in a fiscally prudent fashion.
Correct. And I'll conclude by saying this. I fully support fiscally prudent fashion at a time when we have projected by end of 2027 fiscally to be north of $5 billion. I know there are other expenditures that we have to pay, including gas taxes to the locals, replenish it back to NDOT and all that. But I think, I'm not suggesting spend more. What I'm suggesting, your goal of saving can be achieved, and my goal of improving public health can be achieved by actually having more slots for the assisted living.
Well, again, we'll continue to have this conversation inside the agency and outside the agency.
Well, I appreciate your consideration. I hope you can take it seriously and think about a higher number than 65. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chairman.
Representative Delaney?
Yeah, I'm gonna try to get to a simple way to figure out this bit about 6,500 and 8,000 by kind of thinking like a conservative and looking at the business interests. So, you're telling me that the nursing homes are not getting a flood of new people because of the problems with this assisted living situation. Okay, let's go to the other side. Are the assisted living facilities at full occupancy, or are they at a reduced occupancy from what their historical experience was?
Last I recall, that they have an increased occupancy, but this is a known knowable, and we'll happily provide you with that information, assuming that she doesn't deliver her baby before she gets it to you.
Right. I understand these complexities. I've been through this maternity business several times myself. But back on the merits of this particular problem, it seems to me that's a way to look at this. If the assisted living facilities are experiencing increased vacancy, that's something we ought to know about. Now, what we do about it is another story. But I think one of the reasons we're hearing what we're hearing is that some of the assisted living facilities feel that they could have more people that they could serve.
Right.
And that drives all the lobbying that I'm getting.
Yeah.
So if you help me understand whether that's
Okay,
down,
so-
and you're going to give me that data, I appreciate it.
Right, we'd be happy to provide it. I would say that the companies that are only in the assisted living business, right, they may have seen a flattening or diminution in their numbers. The companies that are in the long-term care business, the nursing home business, and the assisted living business, they have seen an increase because they have moved people from their nursing home to an assisted living facility. So I think that, again, this is to maybe buttresses Senator Fedora's point that there are people living in nursing homes that might otherwise live in assisted living. I believe that, right? Now, the question is, could they have lived in assisted living before they went to the nursing home? Because the nursing homes are supposed to be skilled care, is supposed to actually be somewhat rehabilitative for you, right? So that's you got to take case by case basis.
I think we're getting somewhere. I think you're telling me there may be some market complexities here, and that some companies can perform better because they've got two ways to go. I think that's fascinating, and I think that will help explain some of the pressure. But if somebody belongs in assisted living at less cost and is in a nursing home for whatever inadequate reasons, then we ought to make that move.
Yes, we should.
And I think we need to get the data, and I think if we do, that'll help simplify the conversation, which right now is pretty much who shot John kind of conversation. And I don't know who did shoot John.
Not been very productive. We also have another interesting program that we've seen some real success in, and that is Money Follows the Person, which was for some reason stopped. But when I got here, we restarted it, and we get 100%. We get a very high match rate for the first year when we move somebody out of a nursing home. So we have a slide on that we went through yesterday at the monthly financial review. Can you get him the slide?
Thank you.
It's pretty good news. Rare for me to say.
Anyone else? All right, continue.
Thank you. It's appropriate that we're up here in Mishawaka, Indiana, rather in South Bend, Indiana, because the next one deals with a Pokagon band of folks who are up here. And there are two really state plan amendments that deal with the Pokagon band, and this would allow us to save a little bit of money by going through an all-inclusive rate, and the match will be completely. We will lose any need to match, and we will save a bit of money here on tribal health care, and in return for that, the next is the Tribal Consultation State Plan Amendment. They're willing to go back from 60 days for public comment to 30 days for public comment, which will simplify our internal processes. So we are going to save a little money and save a little process time.
Questions?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The fifth is the Immigration Eligibility State Plan Amendment. This is to bring us into compliance with the Federal Working Family Tax Credit Act or Senate Enrolled Act 2026. So that simply brings us into compliance. Candidly, we have little choice but to do this.
Questions? All right, next.
And the number 7 on our list is pursuant to House Enrolled Act 1427, FSA is seeking a state plan in order to address the colloquial marriage penalty for agencies, home and community-based services. Currently, individuals on HCBS waivers have an asset limit of $2,000, and married couples have an asset limit of $3,000. The state plan amendment will increase the asset limit for married couples to $4,000, or $2,000 plus $2,000. This change is not expected to result in any increase in expenditures, as the number of individual slots on the home and community-based waivers are capped, and currently these waivers are at capacity and operating on a wait list. So happy to answer questions, but again, this is I don't know what the final vote on this act was, but
Questions? Senator Cadora?
One question, Mr. Secretary. What is the number of people on the wait list so far, or the individuals?
Currently?
Yes,
Well, depends which one you're talking about. So I'll read them off and then give you the number.
yes, please.
Now, it is possible to be on more than one wait list, all right? So these are, so there may be duplication in these numbers. In fact, I'm confident there are.
How about just maybe, are you about to recite them, or are you
Yeah.
about to go? Okay, go, thank you.
Health and wellness was the 16,000 slots, wait list of 6,800. Pathways, 38,000 slots, 11,000 wait list. Family support waiver, 26,000 people on, 11,000 on a wait list. Community habilitation, 9,400 with one person on the wait list. And traumatic brain injury, with that one is probably not duplicated. Traumatic brain injury, 200 with 21 on the wait list.
So almost the first three, 6,800, 11,000, 11,000, so almost 30,000, 29,000 to 30,000.
Yes,
for the
but
first
again,
three.
it's likely that several of those people are on multiple
Multiple.
wait lists.
Thank you.
And they may not be eligible. So and what we found is, and I think I've shared this with the committee before, when we invite people off the wait list, our uptake is somewhere between 40 and 60%. So, and to date, we only inviting the number of people we have, as if 100% we're gonna come off, right? So Kim Dotson, who's in the audience today, and I are trying to figure out whether or not we're willing to be an airline. And by that I mean willing to invite more people off the wait list than slots that we have with the virtual certainty that not all those slots are gonna be taken.
Right.
So we're trying to figure out how we can mechanize that.
What is the timeline, if you mechanize that? I understood that logic, we spoke about it before, because it also impacts the number of slots you can request from CMS. If your acceptance rates is 30, 40, or 70%, it doesn't make sense to ask for 100%. So I agree with you. But what is the timeline for, based on the logic you
It'll be
came-
later this year.
that you'll be able to,
Yeah.
to eliminate the wait list, or to
No,
come
no,
up with
no,
the
no.
logic to
No,
implement?
just to come up with a ability to invite more people off the wait list than slots we have available.
Okay.
It's a little nerve-wracking, right? Because the day everybody shows up for the airline, you gotta start buying, you gotta buy the
Now,
buy
are
the ticket back.
Are those slots also controlled by CMS pending state appropriation?
Senator, everything is controlled by CMS
So
pending.
meaning, if by the end of this year you come up with your logic, everybody shows up and they qualify the 60, 70%, would that be the timing to go to the Appropriations Committee or Ways and Means and maybe ask for more slots if you reach that
I
limit
think
or
that's a
threshold?
worthy conversation to have during the budget session.
We're almost there, 3 to 4 months.
We are.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you,
Thank you, members of the
Secretary.
committee. Look forward to be back in front of you in October.
I will mention, you were looking for Senator Skotsky, and it's partially my fault why he's not here. When I plan these things, I try to work around everybody's calendar. He had his annual outing today, and those are set a year in advance, and I did not know that because I don't look at the caucus calendars when I set this. So he couldn't change his outing, so that is why he's not here today. So I apologize, because it's basically my fault that Senator Skotsky's not here in his own district at the Budget Committee meeting. That was not my intent by any means. So I've apologized to Senator Skotsky, so I will apologize publicly that it's my fault that he didn't make the meeting.
So, Mr. Chair, he called me, and he actually wanted to convey to you his deep appreciation, to publicly thank you for collaborating and working with him over the past many years and helping this region with many bills that you and him worked on. So he specifically wanted to convey that message to you publicly. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, he is a good partner. We share this county and work together. So thank you for bringing him up, and thank you, Secretary Robe. So next we have Secretary Hirschman. On spending more money.
What's that?
Money.
hang on. Let me tell you about what we've saved first. So thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. It's great to be here. It has been a busy week with everything from disaster recovery to the SK Hynix groundbreaking that I won't tell you how fast I drove to get here, but it was important for me to be here in front of all of you, and it's always good to see you. As I was preparing for today, I got a chance to reflect on my very few times I've had the opportunity to address you. I remember my very first time. It was January 16th of 2025. I had been in the job 4 days. I was so nervous that I do this rarely, but I literally scripted everything I said to you and I read it, which is not my preference, but I wanted to get it right. What saved me that day is I had a great wingman, Chad Ranney, who is now on the, you were there, you don't remember? Yeah, it's been a little while, but he was fantastic, and I will tell you, it was because he has had so much experience with the state that I learned so much from him, and I continue to learn from him. In fact, in reviewing the disaster recovery fund just this past couple of days, I asked him how much we had in it, and I said, how do we grow it? And he said, sell more fireworks. I thought he was pulling my leg, and then he explained to me he wasn't. So those nuances, I think we missed the boat with. If we didn't get a surge with the 250, I think we're good. We're done for now. But those are the nuances about state government that you continue to learn on and on. A few months later, I had a chance to come back. I had a little bit more confidence. I had a little bit more experience, but I still have my wingman with me. And today is no different. You'll meet Director Matt Brown here in a minute, and he is just as talented. I was thinking about this and what I've learned and who we relied on as we worked through the transition in a brand new administration, with a lot of new policies, a lot of new visions, initiatives, expected outcomes, et cetera. And what I have learned in the last 18 months in the job is I rely heavily on the experience, the tenacity, and the commitment of our state employees, and it is truly stunning. I like to go out and meet as many people as I can. This is a rare Thursday that I'm not in Ora Plaza at the food trucks, just getting a chance to go out and meet people, and it has been amazing. So I don't have anything scripted this time, I'm getting better, but what I did bring is some numbers. As you know, I'm a bit of a data geek, and I think the numbers paint a little bit of a picture of what our employees have been able to accomplish. When we came in and passed that first budget, as you all know, there was a 5% cut and a 5% holdback that got passed. And it was reliant on those state employees to implement those changes. We did so while making other changes. Headcount from December 24, when we came in the transition, to August this month of 26, headcount is down 1,642 positions, and the position count has been reduced by 1,820 positions. What they've been able to do, doing more with less, has been nothing but stunning if you've looked at the most recent surplus statement from 2026 that we announced on July 15th. And just looking at what the employees have a chance to control, and that is the growth rate of government. Just by comparison, the growth rate of government in fiscal 24 was 19.4%. The growth of government in 2026 was 0.75%. Now, you'll see on the surplus statement that it was actually 1% because we took the additional monies and said thank you to our employees with a bonus. Here's the problem. They haven't had a pay increase. We haven't looked at pay bands to see if we're competitive in quite a long time. As a matter of fact, it's been since 2022 that we've looked at pay ranges and whether or not we're competitive. And we're starting to feel it because we're having a hard time recruiting. We're seeing applications cut as much as in half for open positions. We've had the inflation has risen every year since 2019, and in 2022 it peaked at 8.6%. We had a general salary adjustment in 2023 of 3%, but that at best was a bridge to get them a little bit closer to where they need to be. So I'm here today on behalf of the employees. We've asked them to do more with less. They rose to the occasion. They're hardworking. They're talented. They've come at the ready to help us, point us in directions where they see issues, but also come with solutions. And I will tell you, I haven't had a single employee demand or given any implication that they expect a raise, but so there's no sense of entitlement. I will tell you, they've earned it. I will now turn it over to Matt Brown. If you haven't met Matt, he is a spectacular member of my team. I'm a little mama bear. I am very proud of my team. Matt is a brilliant employment lawyer. He's got great business sense, and he's got compassion for employees too. So, Matt, I'll turn it over to you. Thank you.
It's gonna be tough to live up to that. Well, so I'm here to talk through sort of the nuts and bolts of the state's current compensation and classification system and what we're proposing for your review and for the budget session to ultimately decide is to what extent should we and where should we increase the budget for agencies to increase salaries. Our current compensation philosophy is based on several things: market competitiveness, and I'll talk about what that means in the next slide. And our statute also requires we maintain internal equity. So that means positions with similar scope, skill, and employees with similar experience levels and education levels should be paid similarly. And of course, what drives everything is the budget, and so the state's fiscal condition is largely responsible for where we can go with salaries. In 2022, as Secretary Hirschman mentioned, we revamped the state's classification and compensation system, and that was based on 2021 market numbers. When I say market, I don't mean Salesforce, right? We're not competing against the Fortune 500 companies. We're looking at, and we used a consultant at the time, we looked at government industries, nonprofit industries, and the world as a whole within Indiana and other Midwest states. We benchmarked our current jobs using our job descriptions and job profiles with job descriptions and job profiles available on several different market sources. We used a consultant that looked at about 10 to 12 different sources, including ONET, which is the Bureau of Labor Statistics source, Comp Analyst, and the National Compensation Association of State Governments. When we created these pay ranges, we did so by putting our midpoint of the pay ranges at the 50th percentile of market. So based on those market sources I just mentioned, we built pay ranges around the 50th percentile. Now, that's relevant because in a typical compensation system, the midpoint of a pay range is usually used when you maintain proficiency in that role, oftentimes colloquially called about 10-year mark. Once you've hit 10 years in a role or with that experience level, we would expect you to be at the midpoint. However, this plan had two phases. The first was to change the pay ranges themselves to actually be based on our market comparators. The second phase of that was to move employees through the pay plan, through their pay ranges, so that we have a better distribution of salaries throughout the whole pay range. Unfortunately, we didn't get to that point, right? Market conditions didn't allow us to do so. But what that has resulted in is over 80% of our employees are currently paid below the midpoint of our pay range, despite an average tenure of almost 10 years. I think more shockingly than that is about half of our employees are still below the 25th percentile of our pay ranges. So what that results in is something in our world known as compression. Someone who's been at the state and in a role for 5 years is gonna make very similar to someone who's been in the job for 1 year. And at that point, you lose the ability to distinguish performance-wise or salary-wise based on that experience. A good example and where we're seeing this struggle a lot is with our attorney classifications. Of our about 114 general staff attorney type roles, 60 of those are in the first 25th percentile of the pay range. And altogether, 108 are below the midpoint of the pay range. For reference, the minimum of the starting attorney pay range is about $67,000. Once you've hit about 5 years, the minimum becomes $85,000. So relative to market, that is still significantly below what we would expect. I won't need to cover this. Secretary Hirschman already did, and the point of this is that there have not been any general salary adjustments for several years for state employees. So this year we went back to the analysis and we looked at the 2025 market data available to us through different sources that are publicly available and privately owned. What we found is the majority of our job classifications are behind market. There are some which has, through whatever market conditions, the market number that we benchmarked in 22 has not changed, or in some places have decreased. A few examples of those might be CTOs, our laborers, and correctional officers. But a good portion of our jobs are really lagging behind our new market analysis. So I mentioned attorneys, our specialized maintenance classifications, our electricians, our plumbers, et cetera. Those are positions that we see now as being in a pay range that is not relative to what their market pay range should be. So our proposal, which again will be subject to the budget session, is that about 35 of our current job codes, out of about 900 or so, 35 would move pay ranges. Either up, most likely up one pay range, which would change the minimum and the maximum and the midpoint. But we aren't going to actually change any of our pay ranges. We're going to keep the same minimums and maximums we have, but only a handful of those would actually be changed. We think a lot of these ranges are still serviceable because of the fact that it's a range. And if we're able to start moving folks through those pay ranges, we think we'll be able to compete better in the marketplace right now, which we're seeing a lot of struggles with. So our proposed changes are going to be, as I just mentioned, move about 35 job codes up a pay range. But for the majority of them, we would be proposing a minimum 5% general salary adjustment to account for the last several years of no increases and to help alleviate compression. And then on an individual job code basis and employee basis at many levels, move them through the pay range with the expectation that the midpoint would be around proficiency at about 10 years. Now, what that would do, based on our current modeling, rather than have 80 to 82% of our employees below the midpoint, it would go to about 60%. And rather than have about 50% of our employees below the 25th percentile, that would go to about 32%. So not change drastically, but it would be enough to recognize that the conditions in the world have changed. Salaries need to go up to compete with the rising costs of day-to-day life that our employees are experiencing. The fiscal of this, we have it broken down by the type of fund. Overall, we're looking at about $150 million in salary that would be impacted or would be added to the budget session to account for these types of raises. This does not include fringe benefits. That would be in addition to this. But from a salary perspective, about $72 million of this would come from the general fund. So I say that just letting you know what our work thus far has scoped out and what we think we would do in an ideal compensation world within our classification system. But I recognize that that will be subject to this committee's review, as well as the General Assembly and the governor reaching a consensus on budget and what increases should or should not be provided in this session. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Representative Porter.
Thank you very much for your presentation. On one chart, on your 2026 compensation market benchmarking study, you had 42 job codes that led in the market. One was correctional officers. Help me to understand, is that with or without overtime? Because in talking to Secretary Arnold, there was a gap, and I know when we did something up in the Miami Great Slammer, whatever you want to call it, Speedway Slammer, they gave more money to attract individuals up there. So could you unpack that for me, please?
Sure. So that was based on the hourly rate. And if you look at the market sources that correctional officers would be compared to, you're looking at local corrections officers in counties, in jails, in security type roles. There's other types of roles that a correctional officer, if not in a correctional officer role, would go to. I think the minimum hourly rate for a correctional officer starting is around $22 to $23 an hour. So not significant, but also that is about the market, and it remains the market and has been for several years for that type of role. Thank you. You're welcome.
Representative Delaney?
Yeah, I want to thank both you and Secretary Hirschman for this report. I have long been interested in our state employees who get very little attention, and by chance, my wife's a bankruptcy trustee, and in Chapter 13, which is for wage earner plans, and every time she sees a state employee, I hear about it, and I hear that many of them are there for medical debt, but some are there simply because of low income that's paid by the state, and that's unfortunate. We shouldn't put people in that position. I can remember 6 or 8 years ago, I do rant occasionally, I got up at the last day of the session and said, well, we've gotten through the entire session without mentioning our state employees. Not a single reference had been made. I'd been monitoring it to them and their wages and their family circumstances. So this is a very useful thing. We can argue later about the cost and where we should be, but paying this attention is critical. I was a government employee when I was in the Navy, and I remember I had in my wallet the little card which told you with your pay grade and longevity what you would make. And you kind of worked to your card. That's normal. And I think our state employees are aware and should be aware of a comprehensive system and where they sit in the system and where they may sit if they stay longer. And this is just wonderful. We'll fight about the details later, but your analysis is useful, and almost as useful as the analysis is the simple fact that you're paying attention to these people. What are we, 30,000, 28,000 employees?
Around 29,000.
29,000.
In the executive branch.
They deserve our attention, and we deserve to get good results by having a good management and good pay system. So thank you very much. Any other questions? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Since Secretary Hirschman mentioned, Director Rainey, now remember, he did come from the Senate as an intern years ago. And he came up through the Senate, and to top that, the senator he worked for was former Senator Hirschman.
That's right.
He had some pretty good training, didn't he, on the Senate side?
He did. He's one of 3 that has had the misfortune of working for both Hirschmans. So, no, but thank you all. I appreciate your attention.
Thank you. Next, we have Indiana Department of Transportation. Oh, yeah, help yourself, Director Rainey.
Thank you, I appreciate it. Just wanted to apologize to the committee. So there's 2 presentations from INDOT. One is the SEA 27 review projects required by statute now. The second presentation is the presentation this committee requested that INDOT give. I inadvertently sent out the wrong or the incorrect version of the SEA 27 project review slide deck to members. So the correct version is what is on the screen right now, and I will send this corrected version out. The second presentation that you received, which is 27 slides, is correct. It's just that this version, I sent out a prior version of the slide. So I will correct that and make sure everybody has the accurate and up-to-date slide deck for the SEA 27 project review.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and committee members. My name is Lindsay Quist. I'm the Indiana Department of Transportation Commissioner. I am here to present on 2 projects from Senate Enrolled Act 27 in the 2026 legislative session. The first project I'm here to speak to you about is I-69, the Ohio River Crossing. This is a bi-state project between Indiana and the state of Kentucky, connecting Evansville to Henderson. This is a new I-69 interstate 4-lane bridge. This will be our final piece of I-69 within the state of Indiana. This will address an interstate connection between the 2 states, as well as alleviate traffic on US 41. Those bridges, after I-69 is built, will no longer be US 41. Those will have a new designation. This project is new terrain. It's about 8 miles of interstate between Indiana and Kentucky and includes about 3 miles of upgrade on US 41. We plan to award this project later this fall and construction to be complete by 2031. The estimated cost of this project between both states is about $950 million, and with the Indiana portion being in the $400 to $450 million range. Yeah.
So this is just a question in general. So how many bridges do we have in southern Indiana that go over to Kentucky?
Ooh. So off the top of my head.
You don't have it, that's just
right.
some,
Yeah, so there's at least,
you know?
so we have the Lewis and Clark in the Louisville, southern Indiana area. We have the East End Crossing. There's another one further east. There's probably, I would guess, 6.
Okay, so this is not a current bridge, this will be a new one.
This will be a new bridge.
It's not an existing that we're redoing.
Correct.
Okay, because I know of Louisville and New Albany, I think that's the only 2 I can think of. So this would be the 3rd one, and then there's a few others.
Yeah, we have the Sherman.
Anybody down south know that? Center Garden? You live down there.
Thanks for putting me on the spot, Mr. Chairman. So yeah, there's 3 that go into Louisville, 4 if you count the New Albany crossing. That's also counting the 2nd Street Bridge that technically the state of Indiana, we just found out, doesn't own. That's a whole other situation that we're gonna get into later.
Okay.
Because the state of Kentucky's trying to change a traffic pattern that will not be good for the state of Indiana. But, and then with this new bridge, that'll be 5, I think, because I'm not aware of one between. Well, there is one more.
There is one more between, but it's not a state of, well.
We get into a jurisdiction issue.
Right.
In terms of what Indiana owns versus how
I
many
don't really care
bridges
who
there
owns
are.
it. I just wonder how many access points between southern Indiana and Kentucky.
I believe there's 6
At least
currently.
6.
I think there's
Okay.
6 currently. This would be 7.
Yeah.
And
I
we don't
believe.
own all of them, but there's, okay, I just wondered, because we're always talking about a new bridge, and how many new bridges are we doing over to Kentucky? So just, all right, thank you, that helps me out.
I guess any other questions on this project?
Garden?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Lizzie, thank you. We talked a little bit about this and about the tolling portion of this.
Yes.
So again, remind me, NDOT is allowed to extend the current contract with the current operator who is tolling the Ohio River Bridge. Is that correct?
So yes, we are in transition with the current operator to a new operator for the Ohio River Bridges, but that is an option within the contract that it could be extended to this bridge depending on timing of when this bridge is complete and where we are in that contract.
Okay, so this might be a question for Director Rainey then. Maybe it's a question for you, I'm not sure. So when we get into contract portion of this, my understanding would be, because of a piece of legislation we did, wouldn't this contract have to go out to bid? To a competitive bid process? Sure. Okay, yeah, I'd like to know, and then I just want to be on the record. I think it should be.
Okay.
Again, this is me personally speaking. I think anytime one of these things come up, instead of just arbitrarily extending a current contract, I think, to me, this is 100 miles from that operator.
Right.
And so I think we should competitively bid this out and see what's best for the state of Indiana.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? All right, continue.
The second project I'm here to talk to you about is I-70 and Quaker Boulevard in Hendricks County. This is in the Plainfield area that has seen a great deal of growth in recent years. So we would like to pursue an interchange modification with Quaker Boulevard interchange, as well as take care of what we need to with I-70, pavement rehabilitation, bridge rehabilitation, and including some information traffic technology system upgrades to convey better information to our motorists on I-70. So this contract we would like to award in 2027 with completion in 2030. It includes about 10 miles of interstate on I-70. So that concludes my project review portion of the agenda.
Are there any questions? Senator Garten.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Lindsay, I just want to come back to something that I think I heard you say, but I just want to just clarify it. So NDOT is transitioning to a new operator at the Ohio River Bridge on, and that's Riverlink, is that correct, currently?
So Riverlink is the branding of, yeah, that's a good word, branding of the operation, but we are transitioning to our third toll service provider. Our first one was Capsh. The second one is currently Quarter Hill, and we are transitioning to TransCore.
Okay, and how long are those contracts, generally speaking?
I believe 5 years. Okay.
Is there any reason they can't be shorter? And here's why I ask that. They have been absolute disasters for Southern Indiana Hoosiers.
Yeah.
And to put us on the hook for 5 years with operators that have been absolutely abhorrent, I think is not beneficial to the people in Southern Indiana. And so I would just encourage NDOT to take that into consideration as we move forward down there.
We will do that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, so we need 1 minute before you come back up and do the presentation. So we just have to close out the agenda. So we already did the portion to remove anything. We kind of jumped ahead on that. So at this point, I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right. Can we take that by consent, or we need to take a vote? Okay, so we'll take a vote. Aye. Yes.
Yes.
Nay.
No.
Okay, so the agenda is approved 3-2. So with that, we'll move on to our discussion item, which is the presentation that everybody asked for. What I did, I asked the members on the committee for their requests of what they wanted NDOT to talk about. I did not mention who had the requests. I just sent it in as a bulk request from the members. Did not put names with the individual requests. So I think we hit them all on your presentation. So with that, Lindsay, if you want to go ahead, and I appreciate you doing this.
No, thank you again, Mr. Chairman and committee members. So here I am to give an agency update on a variety of topics. So here's a bit of NDOT at a glance. We are built into 6 districts around the state and central office. We are responsible for state-maintained state routes, U.S. routes, and interstates within the state of Indiana. We have about 28,000 lane miles of pavement, around 6,000 bridges, 2,300 traffic signals, about 350,000 road signs around the state that we are responsible for. Here is a bit of an overview of our fiscal year 2026 obligations. We finished the year in just over $4.1 billion. The large majority of our dollars go to state capital preservation plan, taking care of what we have, our assets around the state. The second largest portion is our operations, that is our people, our salt, our equipment. And then the local capital program is also a large portion of our investment around the state. And then we have some smaller pieces, such as our multimodal program, that is includes transit, rail inspections, and a few other things. Then we have our state capital program for Major New. In that slice for this year, we're looking at some planning for the Ohio River crossing, and some wrap-up of I-69 finish line, the tie-in to 465, and then we have a debt service payment. One of the topics that we were asked to discuss was the impacts from the gas tax holiday. So these are the estimated revenues lost with impacts to NDOT and the locals from the April 8th through August 6th declaration. And so we are looking at about a $358 million impact to NDOT. 171 million impact to locals, and then about a total impact of about 530 million. Another topic was the estimated loss for the new declaration from August 7th, and if it were to be enacted for the full 120 days, the estimated impact for this portion for NDOT would be 393 million, the local impact of 200 million, and then for a combined impact of this 120 day, potential 120-day gas tax holiday for about 600 million, for a combined impact of around 1.1 billion to the state and locals. Here is a glance at some of our forecasted recurring state revenue for the State Highway Fund. We did finish fiscal year 2026 with just under 500 million in the State Highway Fund. To speak to that a little, as a state agency and prudent fiscal management, we do work to reserve a $300 million balance in that State Highway Fund to cover things such as potential litigation, events like a COVID where everybody stops driving unexpectedly, something with like a federal shutdown where we may have delays in some of our federal payments and we have contracts out, things along those lines that we keep a reserve. Going back to the overall fiscal year 2026, that 300 million is about 12% of our operating budget. So we find that a good, prudent fiscal management tool to have that reserve. We had built up those reserves. That happens over time. That is not in one fiscal year. That is through multiple efforts that are ongoing in multiple years to build up that kind of balance where, you know, we have purchase order closeouts, we have contract negotiations, other efficiencies through our program and how we operate our agency. And so this is a glance at what we foresee for the next 9 years. These are estimates. A lot could factor into, you know, if these numbers come to fruition, but what we estimate for fiscal year 27 and out to fiscal year 36. I guess I got a little ahead of myself. Where I was trying to explain some of how we started fiscal year 27 and how we have navigated the gas tax holiday that was announced for the first 120 days, as well as the additional 30 days that we are currently in with the new announcement or new declaration. And then examples of how we, like I said, fiscal year purchase order closeouts, programming additional revenues, drawing down different aspects of our funds. And so as we progress through that with the impacts of a potential 240-day suspension, we would estimate that we would close out fiscal year 27 with a negative 427 million balance. And this is where we have had some conversations as to what that looks like with the biennium budget year and conversations with people such as yourselves and how we could change that. A little bit about NDOT's purchasing power. So from the first task force with legislative sessions 2023 and 2024, we have been looking at how we have been affected. We were very fortunate and respect the legislature for the work that they did with House Enrolled Act 1002 in 2017, and we were able to accomplish a lot of great good with projects around the states. But with some of the record inflation in 2022 and 2023, we have seen some declines in our purchasing power and how much we are able to do around the state. So this, again, from the first task force, I share this not as a warning, but more as a forecast to the uncertainty of the futures of our revenues. And electric and hybrid vehicle adoption, while Indiana has not been maybe as much adoption as maybe some other states or areas of the country, we have seen that increase. And I will say we are fortunate, again, from House Enrolled Act 1002 in 2017, with the Community Crossings Matching Grant Fund that has done great work around the state, we are able to see those impacts of how that fund has grown with those electric and hybrid vehicle registration fees, where it has, with that money going out the door, we see maybe 5% of what our budget could have gone to from gas tax sales compared to the electric and hybrid vehicle registration fees. In addition to the adoption of electric vehicles and hybrid vehicles, something else that has impacted our budget, where we have seen changes, is that vehicles are more efficient than they used to be. From 2017, vehicles are on average are at least 15% more efficient, where now they're getting 24 miles to the gallon when they used to be in the high teens, which impacts how often people go to the pump and then our revenues to both us and locals. Another topic, switching topics, the I-70 tolling waiver from House Enrolled Act 1461 in the 2025 session. We did submit a waiver for the Interstate System Reconstruction and Rehabilitation Pilot Program to Federal Highway for I-70 in Indiana. We are still awaiting approval. Should tolling move forward on I-70, we would do an investment grade traffic and revenue study. We would need to do a National Environmental Protection Act documentation, NEPA documentation, which would include public involvement and public information meetings. So there would be a great deal more work to do should that be approved. Our overall 5-year capital program. So we have about 5,000 projects around the statewide with that 5-year capital program. As an agency and a business in some ways, we have to continually evaluate our forecasted revenues with the cost of our projects and make adjustments. On average, we deliver over 90% of our projects in a given fiscal year. There are about 10% or less that fall out for various reasons, whether that be delays with right-of-way acquisition, utility coordination, or a variety of other things where some of those projects fall out. There has been discussion about the 300 projects that were delayed. That was a one-time event in 2023 in response to the record inflation that we were seeing in 2022 and 2023, where we were looking at our 5-year capital program and those numbers were not in alignment. And so at that time, we did delay 300 projects. Some of those projects have already been delivered. Some of those projects were further out in that 5-year program, and so we are looking, when that's appropriate of, making sure we have the right scope at the right time for those assets. So, making sure that we are taking care of what we have to in a fiscally prudent but also responsible manner for public safety. Some of those projects we also addressed with our own operations asset teams to give them work needed to get to where we delayed them in that capital program. Here is a glance at where we are from House Enrolled Act 2017. We have been assessing our road and bridge conditions annually as required by that law. And so as you can see, we are currently for 2025, there is a lag in the data, but for 2025, we were at a 94.1% of our roadway assets were in fair or better condition, which has rose significantly since 2017. But as you can see, this also kind of correlates to some of what I was saying about the reduction in our purchasing power that we are seeing from our asset conditions, that our dollar isn't going as far as it used to. And here is also for our bridges, which are still above where the target was set. So we are at 97.5%. and doing well for those assets. Here's another example of how we can share how costs have changed for some of our capital program projects. In 2015, we were able to rehabilitate an interstate lane mile for $8.4 million, and in 2024, 2026, we're looking more at $45 million per lane. Next is the Mid-States Corridor update. We are currently in a Tier 2 environmental study for the segment of independent utility of a Jasper-Huntingburg bypass in DuBois County. So that is just a segment of when we speak to the whole Mid-States Corridor, sometimes, which is the original study for Tier 1 was from I-64 to I-69. So this would be a Tier 2 for just a portion of that overall Mid-States Corridor. So with this, we are doing a NEPA document. We anticipate releasing a draft environmental impact statement in fall of 2026. This project is in the preliminary study phase where we are refining alignments and what this would look like if we were to move forward. The right-of-way acquisition and construction phases of this project are not funded, only the Tier 2 environmental document. The statewide transportation improvement program. This is also known as the STIP. So this is how we coordinate with all of our projects, but we also coordinate with the metropolitan planning organizations, the rural transportation organizations, and others to have our projects in their programs. And with this comes public notice requirements where we share locations of projects, estimated costs, and what we plan to do with those assets. We have it's a 4-year program with a 5-year as illustrative, which we update regularly. We have a cycle of monthly amendments to each of the metropolitan planning organizations, as well as for the statewide transportation improvement program. Another tool in our toolbox is our transportation asset management plan. This is our 10-year asset management tool where we assess all of our assets around the state and asset management practices to plan improvements to our state road and bridge network along with our other assets. And so we are routinely updating this. This is a 4-year document. We just last week turned in the new document to Federal Highway Administration for their approval because our last document was approved in 2022. So you can see in there it includes risk assessments, discussion about potential funding levels, and this is how we go through and assess what projects we do when and where around the state. Some examples of best practices and emerging approaches. We have been working through how we can operate more efficiently, leveraging technology. One of them is the Operation Digital Unity. For our maintenance operations, DMO, we recently won an award from the American Association of State Highway Transportation Officials for our operations where we were modernizing some of those systems, and so we can communicate, get workflows, improve response time, and have better resource management. We also just recently launched a constituent assistance tool so we can have better communication efforts in supporting agency customer service efforts and streamlining those reviews and routing for customer cases. We've also been working through transportation system management operations, or also called TSMO, working through ways in which, especially for congested urban areas where real estate is a premium, how we can alleviate congestion and operate the system more efficiently. How can we communicate better with motorists so they know if there are queues being detected or have better signage for what they can anticipate on our roadways. We've been also very fortunate. Another area in which we are changing operations is our alternative delivery. We were fortunate a couple years ago to get progressive design build and construction manager general contractor tools in our toolbox for contracting. And so this has helped us get early contractor involvement. It helps us mitigate risk and accelerate delivery of projects that we can get those projects out to construction faster, reducing project costs and inflation, and then having certainty as the project moves through development. We are also tracking for connected vehicles, how we can send and receive real-time information, and how we can assess, if there are potential crashes, traffic delays, weather conditions, or other road hazards, and how we can leverage that to take care of our assets faster and have better response times to issues on the roadways. And along with that is our intelligent transportation systems that we can communicate better to our motorists and traveling public with roadway weather information, dynamic message signs, warning motorists of what to expect ahead. From some of the maybe technical aspects, we've been exploring new materials such as void reducing asphalt membrane that should improve joint performance on our asphalt roadways, along with warm mixed asphalt, which is also intended to extend the life of those asphalt assets. Another area, so the stream and wetland mitigation in lieu fee program, NDOT has been making payments to satisfy our mitigation requirements. From our use of federal dollars and the work that we do, we are required by U.S. Army Corps of Engineers and the Indiana Department of Environmental Management to make mitigation payments, or not payments, make mitigation requirements as part of our permit processes for our projects if we are affecting streams and wetlands. And so with the combination of these funds, we used to self-perform some of that work, and there were several smaller sites, and they were not maybe performing as people would like. So with this, a larger resource of pool that we could have larger sites that could perform better for those stream and wetland mitigations from the work that we do. Here is the invoices, the totals of what we have done with this program since it started in 2019 through 2026. We have been, I believe, the largest user with about just under 45 million in payments to DNR for this program. This has given us certainty for our projects. This does help us move faster to market. There are examples like the LEAP interchange at I-65 and 52, where this helped us move faster to get that to construction, that we could meet those permit requirements with this payment to the program that would delay us self-performing or finding another entity to do this work for us. And the self-performance of this work is not necessarily an area of work where our agency is really built to succeed. This isn't the type of work that we usually do, because there are requirements for 5 to 10 years and then into perpetuity for these sites to be monitored for success. And that is that for that. Are there questions?
Questions? Senator Cadora.
Thank you. From the 300 projects that were delayed in 2023, some of them have already been implemented.
Yes.
What is the number of projects that have not yet been executed or implemented from the 300 list?
I don't know the number off the top of my head.
No
but
problem.
Yeah.
Maybe if you don't mind.
I can look up, yes.
Great. The second question, do you mind if you go back to the revenue slide where you had the declining revenues for NDOT?
The purchasing power?
It-
State Highway Fund?
Yeah, it's slide, is there a number for that slide? Page 15 of the, is this slide, no, go back to the table.
Oh, the Cost.
Yeah, page 15 or slide 15 or 27. This one. So I think you skipped it. Go back. No, the
No.
table. I think go one more.
Okay, sorry, wrong way. This,
No, here,
this,
this one, yes,
okay.
this one. Thank you. So you go from 1.17 billion to 1.6, so that's a drop.
So the 27 does include the gas tax holiday implications. So that's
that
why
number
it
is
is
already
lower.
Got it.
Yeah.
So declining revenues over the next decade, declining purchasing power, more efficient fuel. So when do you, I remember we had a committee where you had a slide that said in 20 years or 25 years, you might be in trouble as an agency in meeting your statutory requirements. I recall when we met a couple of years ago, the date was closer. There was like a 2034, 2035, maybe 2036, that you will not be able to meet your statutory requirements to maintain state roads. Was that date revised or?
So we have seen that date kind of accelerate from a variety of factors, at least based on these forecasted revenues and from our TAMP, the asset management practices. We have modeling of all of our assets and what we need to do and how we can build a fiscally constrained program. And so we see there's some factors at play, but we would see potentially sooner than 2034 or 2036. Potentially closer to 2033 or 32, us not being able to meet our statutory requirements. However, factors in play, like if we were to have approval for tolling, you know, and move forward with some kind of tolling program, that could change drastically. These numbers do not account for any tolling program or other potential revenues. It assumes flat to maybe a little bump. Sorry, never mind. I was mixing topics.
So
I was about to say something
so
else.
just to confirm, by 2034 potentially, you will not be able to meet your statutory requirements of maintaining our potentially, knowing what we know today without additional revenues.
I'm hesitant to give you, I will follow up with a specific year which we are concerned about not meeting our statutory requirements, but we do see that in the future
Accelerating, coming sooner.
if something, yes.
Well, here, and I'm not getting picky on the specific
Yeah.
year. The idea that I'm getting at is that the General Assembly has to act if we see a red flag that a state agency that is responsible for maintaining state highways and roads is reaching a point in the next decade, whether it's 2033, 34, 35, 36.
Right.
So I think maybe the General Assembly might not act immediately in 2027, but I think it's helpful because we had that discussion over the last 2 years. I remember having that discussion with Senator Kreider on, he attended a conference and they projected that by 2030, the number of electric cars in Indiana is going to significantly increase, and then there's a decline. And I think the learned lesson from that conference was legislators across the country do not feel or see the urgency to act because they constantly saw the revenues increasing, but the increase in revenue is really a misconception in a way, because the gallons being consumed are declining, but the value per gallon is going up. So on paper, it shows that we're collecting more revenues. So it's lessening the sense of urgency for us to act. But truly, I wanted to highlight to the committee that what I've heard is that we're going to hit a timeline in the next decade by which this agency, without any additional revenues, will not meet its statutory requirement. That's the point I was
Okay.
trying to get at.
Thank you.
Thank you. My final question on the Mid-States Corridor project, who requested, was that initiated by NDOT just doing its work to understand better connectivity for the region? Or was that a project that was requested by local county commissioners or the public? What started this project from the beginning?
From the beginning. So I'm not certain the year off the top of my head, but circa 2016, 2017, there was a regional development authority in the DuBois County area who approached NDOT to start that Tier 1 study of the Mid-States corridor from I-64 to I-69. At that time, that Regional Development Authority contributed significant funds and funded the majority of that Tier 1 study for the Mid-States corridor. In, I think it was 2023, 2024, that Tier 1 study completed, and then the logical step is to pursue then a Tier 2 study. At that time, the NDOT leadership with the Regional Development Authority had those conversations of continuing with the Tier 2 study, and the Holcomb administration at that time, and that was when it was decided to pursue the Tier 2 study with the Jasper-Huntingburg bypass in DuBois County.
Thank you for that clarification. I know that the cost of if this project moves forward, the cost will depend on the path of the project.
Correct.
I've heard random numbers in the billions from different people, and I know that you can't give me a precise answer because the design is not there.
Correct.
But at any point, was there any estimate of how much that project could potentially cost? And what is the return on investment for the state if that project does not move forward? Does the cost justify the return on investment for the state?
So as you shared, a lot of that is still in development. So there were cost estimates done with the Tier 1 study. At that time, inflation has changed a great deal from one of the slides I showed as far as the cost to construction for some of those types of contracts. And so we are refining those numbers. With the Tier 2 study, there is economic impact information that is being developed, and that will be included when we have that draft environmental impact statement out for public consumption later this fall.
I sincerely appreciate you. I'll conclude by saying this. That area is not in my district. I'm here in I'm not here. I'm in Indianapolis. This is South Bend. But I can't tell you how many times I got invited to meet with Hoosiers who live in that area who are extremely angered, frustrated. Some of them are afraid they will lose their farmland, they will lose their homes depending on the design. So I saw a note about public hearings that will be scheduled. I urge you to engage heavily with the public to be sure that their voices are heard, that we understand their concerns, their anxiety, and we respond to those by helping them achieve their dreams and their goals for their community. And then the cost, I think my colleague, Senator Garton, I always like to look at, you, since you're across from me, I think, we had his favorite, one of Senator Garton's favorite infrastructure projects deals with trails. And he always questions the value and the investment, like how much we spend. One of the slides in here actually showed that the cost for lane mile over the last decade jumped from 8 million to 46.
Yes.
So I think when we talk about potential infrastructure needs, mainly highways, roads, and whatever, I can't even fathom or understand that. That what caused. It's what 6 times from 8 million to 46 million, roughly speaking, for 1 lane mile. Correct.
Correct.
46 million for 1 lane mile. That's unbelievable.
Yeah.
Did I trigger you?
Senator Garden.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. Since Senator Kador invoked my name, I feel like I've got to speak. So, I don't know that I've ever questioned the value of trails. I have questioned the cost of trails. And if the cost of a paved lane mile blows your mind, then the cost of a mile of trail should blow your mind more, because it's more than a paved mile of Interstate 65. So you've heard me say it before, but the math ain't mathin'. Okay? So that's my issue with trails. It's not the value. I love trails. I'm on them every day at our state parks, but the expense is absurdity. Lindsay, I'm gonna spare you a in-depth wetlands debate today. I'm not gonna put the committee through that again. But I do have a question. I wrote down something you said, and I just wasn't sure what you were referring to, and so I just want some clarification. You made a comment when you were talking about some of the wetlands mitigation, and I wrote it down word for word. You said, quote, "not performing as people would like."
So we are required for some of those sites, there are requirements for 5 and 10-year milestones and then into perpetuity for how they perform. And so, there could be like invasive species come in and we need to tear that out and maintain those sites that we have previously built and installed around the state. And so that requires additional maintenance and upkeep, again, which as an agency that's responsible for transportation infrastructure, that's just not really our strongest suit.
Got it, okay. I wasn't sure what you were
Yeah.
referring to, so I appreciate the clarification. If you could go back to that, the stream and wetland mitigation slide where you've got your
Yes.
numbers. Do you know the differentiating factor between what of these are jurisdictional wetlands versus which of them are state isolated wetlands?
Not off the top of my head. I could work on that with my team.
That matters.
Yeah.
And I think it'd be important for us to know as legislators.
Okay.
Getting back to Senator Cadora's point, I too am concerned about NDOT being able to fulfill state obligations, but we can't have programs that 44 other states don't have that apply additional costs. The irony is not lost on me. This doesn't make sense. And I'll leave it there. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Anyone else? Representative Delaney.
Yes, thank you very much. First, I owe it to my constituents to make the following comment. Tolling I-70 is one thing. Tolling I-70 within 465 is another thing. And I think we're going to need to pay very careful attention to whether the daily commuter gets bombed or can be protected. So that's just as you get into that conversation. So secondly, I think it's incumbent upon us when we see something stunning to pay attention to it. So back to this number about interstate mile. In 2015, you could lay a lane of interstate, 1 lane, 1 mile for $8 million. That's just one
Correct.
lane of maybe 4 or 6, right?
Right.
And now it's 46. What happened? Is there something very specific that drove that?
So as you can see, like in the 21, like from 18 to 21, you see that fairly large jump.
Right.
And then it kind of continues. In 22 and 23, we saw also significant cost increases to our capital program. Over 80% of our capital program is competitively bid with low bid winning per state statute. Some of these projects, we use those alternative delivery tools, but those are also like cost is a component. We try to incentivize innovative approaches and other means and methods within reason, working through that with our contractor and engineering partners. But cost is a component and low bid is a component of most of our capital program.
And that's the best we can do in the bids, I understand. So I'll have a private conversation with you about my experience with this in the past that maybe will be beneficial. But I don't want to throw any bombs in the hearing. Meanwhile, your charts about the gas tax holiday, and by the way, my language is quite different. So I don't call it a gas tax holiday. I call it a gas tax deferral. And by that I mean we're going to have to backfill that. Right? Do you have a proposal for how we restore the money that we're not currently collecting?
Not to share with you today. I mean, we have had conversations with Director Rainey and others within the administration and some of the legislative leadership, but those are very preliminary.
Yeah, and it's going to have to come out of the taxpayers one way or the other. It may not come out of the gas pump when they go to the gas pump, but it's either going to come out of our surplus or come out of some increase. It just can't disappear. I take it you intend to perform the commitments you've made to maintain our roads and highways. You've made that very clear.
Yeah.
So this money that has not been collected will be spent. Now, on the local side, we've been funding them. Have you delayed any projects on the state side because we're not funding back that loss of revenue?
So no, because from the slide I shared, we did start the fiscal year with an
Right.
additional approximately 500 million, just under 500 million in the state highway fund. And so we have leveraged those reserves to keep our capital program on track.
And that will, of course, run out, as I see your chart, by next summer, or actually by Christmas, I guess. You won't have that reserve to spend. In the meanwhile, are you foregoing interest or other earnings off the reserve?
That fund does not earn interest, so
How is that?
that might be a Director Rady question. I don't.
That is a surprise to me. I mean, if it's not just a theoretical fund or a promise, if it's a fund that actually has assets, has money in it, we should be obtaining interest, I would think.
The fund is funded based on the revenue that comes in, so other than at the end of the year, if NDOT carries over a balance into the next fiscal year, money comes in, money comes out in near real time, not exactly real time, but in real time.
Do we actually have a balance? I see this number of about $1 billion. Do we have a balance?
Well, so the billion is the foregone revenue that otherwise would have come into the fund that's not coming into the fund. But that, as that money comes into the fund, NDOT would have turned around and immediately spent it. So unlike the general fund or whatever else that accumulates assets, the state highway fund is constantly churning through its revenue.
Is there a proposal to get us back where we were?
I can answer that.
Oh, thank you.
So maybe you weren't comfortable answering this, but I will. So there was a request by the administration to put the 1.1 billion in the budget.
The next year's budget?
Yes. But as I said, and the speaker had said the same thing, we can never promise, something in a future budget, because A, we don't know where we're gonna be, and B, I can't speak for my other 38 members of my caucus. So where we left it with the administration was that we would make it a priority to consider where we can access funds to replenish the 1.1 billion.
So we want the governor to ask us how he wants us to do it?
Well, he basically, he wants it from the general fund.
From the ongoing general fund or from our surplus and reserves?
Surplus.
From the reserve.
From the reserves.
So we would reduce the state surplus on a one-time basis to pay for this?
If we chose to put it in the budget, we would reduce the reserves by 1.1 billion, one-time money, yes.
A one-time transfer from the reserves to the state highway fund and the amount necessary to repay the state highway fund for the foregone revenue.
That is a request.
Yeah, I understand.
Put in
That's
the
just,
budget.
yeah, we have to then work forward. Okay, this is a very substantial amount of money, and it's a very unusual purpose, shall we say, for this activity. But let's go to what worries me perhaps a little bit more. I get the sense, and this number about $46 million per lane mile adds to it, that if this gas tax delay or slowed down funding had never occurred, it appears we are already on a path where our current funding mechanisms are inadequate. At least as you see it over time. Okay, so they're inadequate, which means we were gonna face some kind of a request for an increase, even if there had been no gas tax pause, gas tax holiday. We were gonna face that. So I think the problem is sort of double what it was. We have a two-headed problem, this pause, and then secondly, the long-term need for adequate funding. And I think I'm just wanting the public to know and the members of the legislature to know that we've got one huge, real problem.
You are summing that up very well.
Well, I'll shut up after that remark. And I mean that. Thank you. This is.
It's important.
I don't want to be in la-la land about this, and I think the public shouldn't expect us to be in la-la land. So, thank you very much.
Any other questions, comments? Senator Garten.
Thank you. Lindsay, just one quick question. As Rep. Delaney was talking about this, something came up in my head. Have we looked at the cost of lane miles in other states and how we compare?
So we have started to look into that. I can't speak to that now, but we are looking at that. And I do know from some of my peer interactions with other Midwest states, they are seeing similar cost increases on their projects as well.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Thank you for putting that together for us. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
So that is all we have today. So I will say this, our next meeting will be in the second half of October. Don't have the dates set yet. And it will be in the south central part of the state somewhere. And we don't have that 100% squared away. So we'll get that out as soon as we can. I've got everybody's, I don't have October dates from everybody. Well, yeah, I did get October dates. So we're gonna try to work on everybody's calendars again, and we'll get that out as soon as possible. So with that, again, I wanna thank Notre Dame, University of Notre Dame for hosting us, and Indiana University South Bend for hosting us as well. It's been a great experience, so thank you very much. With that, we will adjourn.